Hello, and welcome to another episode of Boundless Body Radio. I'm your host, Casey Ruff, and today we've got a special episode for you. Today is Christmas here in the United States at the date of release. It's December 25th, 2023, and I was kind of thinking what I was going to do today. I definitely didn't want to take the day off from podcasting. I want to make sure we got something out there, but I really felt like it probably wouldn't be that fair to launch an interview from a guest on a day that probably not a ton of people are going to be listening to podcasts. So what I decided to do is to relaunch an episode that we did earlier this year. It's one of my favorites from the year 2023, which is called Special Episode Amazing Stories from the Attendees of Low Carb Denver 2023. That was episode 424, which we launched on March 6th, 2023. As I was thinking back on what I wanted to do, I really wanted to share some of the most impactful stories that I've heard from some of our experts. We're going to do our 2023 year in review, where I share my favorite moments from the podcast, so look out for that to come out soon. But for today, for Christmas, for the holidays, for everybody, I just really wanted to relaunch this really special episode. If you know anything about me, you know that this is not going to be a short episode. I suck at brevity, as they say, and so grateful for all our amazing guests and all these people that I've actually still been able to keep up with, like Tia, Buz, and Bruce I talk to all the time, Jill and Emily Harveaux, Olivia Khwaja, Dr. Stadtherr, Robyn Dobbins, a dear friend of mine. Like all of these people, we've been able to stay in contact. I've done several spin-off episodes with some of these other people, and we've got to learn and understand their amazing stories. And yeah, I'm so grateful that I had the idea to do this, to just bring my phone and steal away to find a quiet place to interview some of these people and hear their stories, because even though we're all in this conference, there's still thousands of people there. And like, I would not have met any of these people. They would have just passed right by me and I wouldn't have known their stories. So really glad that I decided to do this. And as I look back through the inventory of all the different episodes that we did, this is the one that stands out as one of my favorites for that storytelling. So I really hope you enjoyed this one. I hope you forgive me for re-airing something we've already aired, but I figured this is appropriate for Christmas and for the holidays. So without further ado, here is the relaunch of the special episode Amazing Stories for the Attendees of Low Carb Denver 2023. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Boundless Body Radio. I'm your host, Casey Ruff, and today we are releasing a special episode that is taken from some of the attendees of the recent Low Carb Denver 2023 conference that I attended in Denver, Colorado. We actually discussed this with Dr. Jeffrey Gerber in episode 415. He is the one that puts this event on and has done this conference for many, many years. And so I would recommend going back to listen to that podcast if you want to learn more about the conference. You just cannot believe how much work goes into putting some of these together, and he did such an amazing job. He's done an amazing job in the past. I've been to the 2020 event, which was fantastic. Just so happened to coincide with the weekend that the world was absolutely like shutting down, and this was no exception besides the pandemic. It was just such a great event, and I loved attending every minute of this. Before we get into exactly what this episode is and what format it is in, I wanted to take a few minutes to describe the conference and tell you some of the stories that I saw and some of the things that I experienced while I was there. So that's what this episode is going to be. We are going to be hearing from some of the attendees at the conference. But like I said, before we do that, I just want to talk about my experiences as I was there. So I did travel to the conference by car, probably not the smartest, traveling from Salt Lake City to Denver, Colorado, in the wintertime. Going up and over different mountain passes was a little bit stressful. There was definitely a lot of snow and some whiteout conditions, but ended up making it. I was fortunate enough to stay with some of my in-laws in Evergreen, Colorado, if you're familiar with the area. It's just up in the hills, and they were kind enough to let me stay there overnight, which was fantastic. It was 1 degree when I got there, so very, very cold. And they have a very tight and twisty kind of a driveway to get down to their house. And so my car was able to get down the road. I should have really second guess that decision because it was way too icy to get the car up the road when I needed to go to the conference the next morning. So fortunately, my in-laws were nice enough to give me their truck for the day, which is fantastic. So thank you, Eric, for letting me borrow your truck to get to the conference. Was a little bit late because of that. Getting into the conference is kind of interesting. Like you get there and everybody's sitting down. There's over 1,000 people attending the show, and you kind of feel a little weird. People aren't like talking to each other, and you're listening to some of the talks that are going on. I tried to take a lot of notes. I always sit in the front row for these things and try to take in all the speakers. It's just an amazing contrast to when you leave the show and you're just like hugging everybody and all the amazing people that you met, all of your heroes, everybody that you follow, people that have been on the show like multiple times. Like it was such a cool experience as you leave. Very sad to leave behind some of those people, but it's amazing, like as the conference goes, some of the things that you experience with other people is just fantastic. Some of the interesting talks I heard, Dr. Layne Norton was invited to this conference, which is a very interesting choice. Layne Norton is a pretty polarizing person, especially in the low carbohydrate world. How do I say this? He has in the past taken videos of low carb experts that they post on their social media, and he has turned around and reposted those with his own commentary and how he disagrees with these people in probably the not so nicest way. And so again, it was a really interesting decision for him to be here. His position on nutrition is very much calories in, calories out, and wherever you get your calories from, it's all kind of the same, especially when it comes to calories that come from energy. So the difference between fat and carbohydrates. His presentation was called Common Logical Fallacies in Nutrition Science. The talk was really good. If you listen to the words that he said and everything that he was presenting, it was a really great way to identify things that people say as far as nutrition science and be able to identify like, okay, this might be true. This is definitely not true. So yeah, he was received okay, I would say. Not a super warm reception. I saw him a few times. I did not talk to him. But yeah, interesting choice there. We also heard from Dr. Andreas Eenfeldt. He is at Diet Doctor, and they have recently started to shift their position on the kinds of foods they're recommending. They're coming out with a satiety score. That is also being met with a lot of controversy. We will be doing an episode in the near future addressing that. Diet Doctor has been a wonderful resource for me over the years, and I'm not super sold on this idea. And so we'll see where that goes over time. I decided to cancel my membership to Diet Doctor, kind of because of this, which is a bit of a shame. Like I said, they've done a lot of work and they've helped us a lot over the years. I just really kind of disagree with some of the fundamental principles that they talk about. After hearing those talks, I kind of spent the lunch break, kind of thinking to myself, like, wow, maybe I'm wrong about some of this stuff. And then the afternoon session started. And first of all, hearing from Dr. Chris Palmer, the recent author of the book Brain Energy, gave his speech, which was unbelievable. We've hosted him on our show before, and he's just such an amazing man who's doing so much work in the world of ketogenic diets with mental disorders. You contrast that with the things that Layne Norton is talking about, and he's really only talking about body composition and weight management, where Chris Palmer is talking about like people with schizophrenia not showing signs of schizophrenia, like such a big difference that I observed. His was such a wonderful and impassioned speech, which I absolutely loved. Also heard from Dr. Tro Kalayjian. Got to meet Tro and his wonderful wife, Rosette. Shout out to them. They're just the nicest, sweetest people. Rosette was there to sell her product, Rosette's cake mixes, and they were absolutely delicious. She was selling them there. Definitely recommend you check them out if that's your thing. And Dr. Tro, a day before doing this presentation, completely scrapped what he had and what he was going to present on. And he kind of created a little bit of a rebuttal to some of the things that were said earlier in the conference. And I got to tell you, it was one of the best mic drop presentations that I have ever seen. We are working to get Dr. Tro on as soon as possible. It was an amazing speech. I can't wait to share that story with you and share some of the things that he said. I thought that was absolutely wonderful. That night I was able to come back for a social kind of meet and greet thing. It was a paid event, and so I chose to pay to go to the event because this is just such an opportunity to meet all of my heroes. And walking to that event, I was able to meet Nina Teicholz for the first time. I saw her at the conference, but she was always talking to somebody else, always busy. And as I'm walking through the lobby of the hotel, I see her come out, and I stopped and I saw her, and it took her a second for her to recognize me, but we just had a huge hug, and I was able to express to her how much she has meant in my life and everything that she has done writing the book, The Big Fat Surprise. She gave her presentation the next day. She said that she was a little bit nervous about doing the presentation. She wasn't fully done with her slides. She was going to have to stay up a little bit late, and she just is not that much of a morning person, is what she told me. Well, she got on stage at 7:30 in the morning on Saturday morning, and by 8 o'clock in the morning, she was receiving a standing ovation for her work. So she is most certainly a morning person, apparently. And it meant so much for me to finally meet her. I was able to meet all kinds of different people that I'd never met, people that had been on the show. So Nina was one. Dr. Bill Schindler, amazing. Got to meet him, got to meet the Claysians, like I said. I was able to meet Dr. Sean Baker for the first time. I was able to meet Amber O'Hearn. Again, just so many people in the low carbohydrate space that have been really doing amazing work, and people that I follow and really learn from and got to express my gratitude for them and for all of their work. So that part was really great. After every kind of session that they would have, so we would have, maybe 4 or 5 different speakers would go for about 30 minutes each. There would be maybe one brief break in between. And then we've had a panel discussion. So all of the speakers from the previous kind of chunk of time would go up and sit on stage. Saturday morning was a little wild. We had Nina Teicholz presenting. She was on stage with Dr. Khurram Nasir, Dr. Nadir Ali, Dave Feldman, Dr. David Diamond, and this panel discussion was moderated by Dr. Eric Westman out of Duke. Amy Berger attended the show as well, and she and I were chatting after this. Like, we should not ever have these people together on stage. If the stage were to suddenly collapse and we were to lose all of these people at the same time, like, that would be terrible. It's almost like a president, vice president kind of situation where we need to keep them in separate areas because they are just wonderful researchers. A lot of them are cardiologists and deal a lot with cholesterol, and that was kind of the idea, is to get them all together. And, there were some ideas about statins that people didn't agree with. I would say Dr. Nasir was kind of more pro using statins for people that have heart disease for different reasons, where somebody like Dr. David Diamond was absolutely against it. And there was a debate, and I wouldn't say it was heated, but it was passionate. And to be able to respectfully talk about these ideas and share the research about why some of these things shouldn't be used, I thought was fantastic. Again, the whole thing was really respectfully done. One of the key points I got out of all of that, I generally am not a believer in using statins. I don't think the evidence is very good that they work for most people. But one of the points that Dr. Nasir made is that, he's in clinic, he's treating patients, and he is noticing benefit in certain patients. And we shouldn't just throw the baby out with the bathwater when we say that statins shouldn't be prescribed. I think for some situations, they really should be. And to have that perspective, I thought was really, really wonderful. It was really awesome to see his presentation. We did mention Dave Feldman. This was a jaw dropper. Dave Feldman is a cholesterol researcher. He is not associated with the medical industry. He deals with software and software systems. And he was put on this road, like investigating cholesterol, because he decided to do a low carbohydrate diet. He felt way better. He lost a lot of weight. Everything was going good. He went and got a blood test from his doctor. Everything was just sparkling. Looked really, really great, except for one thing, which is his LDL cholesterol, or what people call the bad cholesterol, had shot up really, really high. And that was concerning. His doctor said, all of this is great besides this. So now you feel good. You've lost weight. You want to continue doing this, but you are at a very, very high risk of heart attack. And that sent him down a rabbit hole of learning about cholesterol. He came out with a new paradigm. We've interviewed him before, so I recommend checking that out. That was an interview we did with Dave Feldman and Dr. Nick Norwitz. I believe it's episode 109. Could be wrong on that, but it's somewhere in that area. So you can go back to that episode and listen to that. We've talked about him a lot. But part of his new study is about kind of measuring people with very high cholesterol who have been on a low carbohydrate diet for a while, and validating different testing by looking at calcium scores inside the body. very expensive to do this kind of thing. I mean, we're talking getting a cohort of about 100 people and testing them at 9 different sites in 3 kind of different ways to come up with 45 different testing points. I'm probably butchering all of that. This study design was kind of new to me, so again, I probably am butchering that. But what he revealed on stage after collecting the preliminary data, so just getting the data from the test starting, like the audible gasp that you could hear in the room as he presented his findings were it was incredible. It was an amazing experience. I think I started laughing when I saw it, that these people starting out, like average age was like 55 years old. 60% of them were male. So those are good because those are the types of people that are going to have cardiac events. These are people that have been following a low carb ketogenic diet for many, many years. And like I said, they had really, really high cholesterol. They also had some different risk factors, which they were able to kind of put into this study, which I think is really valid. And with the preliminary data, by doing these tests with 45 possible points of calcium buildup in the arteries, not one single participant had a score of over 10 out of 45, and a majority of those people had a 0 score. This is staggering. Absolutely staggering for the idea that LDL cholesterol is causative of heart disease. This could completely reverse that paradigm. So his research, his talk was absolutely amazing. Another standing ovation for him. Just wonderful work, and I'm so excited to see where that goes in the future. Dr. Shawn Baker also had a talk. Like I said, I was able to meet him, which is cool because he basically signs my checks for Rivero coaching. When I coach somebody, my profile is on his website. They hire me through his website. So basically I kind of work for him a little bit, but it was great to meet him. And his presentation was great. It was all about carnivore diets, and he has a really relaxed way of dealing with carnivore diets and is really a fan of just trying different things out and keeping things really simple. Presentation was great. He started the presentation by saying, raise your hand if you're in the audience and you are a human being. So obviously everybody's hand shoot up. And then he says, raise your hand, keep your hand raised if you are eating more meat now than you used to in the past. And then the next question was, keep your hand up if you are now eating less fruits and vegetables than you used to. And he said, keep your hand up if you feel better than you've ever felt in your life and you are planning to continue to eat way more meat and animal products. And like I said earlier, I'm kind of a front row Joe fanboy at these things. I always like to be up front. So I took a look behind me, and even I was like blown away. So I grabbed my phone as quickly as I could. I ran up to the corner of the room and took a picture of the room, and it was pretty much everybody's hand was up. Now, that's a very self-selecting, kind of cohort. You're talking to people who, generally speaking, are already on low carbohydrate or carnivore diets and are noticing those benefits. So you would expect a fair amount of them to have their hand up, but I was actually very shocked by the number of people that have been eating more animal products or gone exclusively carnivore and have no intention of giving that up anytime soon. I thought that was a nice anecdote. That's not science, but when you start to get so many people, like all the guests on our show, to have all of these stories of healing, like that counts for something. That adds up quite a bit, and that should be good evidence that what you're doing is kind of in the right direction. So I really appreciated that he addressed that in that way. Also, randomly, this guy was not on the list of people that were even going to show up, let alone present at this conference. And as I'm walking out of one of the sessions, I see this tall, super jacked, tan dude with his girlfriend in the audience. And he's chatting somebody up. And I look back, and then I look like double take, and then I look back, and then like triple take. And I'm like, is that Dr. Anthony Chaffee from Australia? Like, what? Sure enough, Dr. Chaffee was there, a 2-time guest of this show. Great dude, great guy. We had such a good time catching up. Always have great conversations with him. He is so smart and knowledgeable, but also so friendly and kind. And it was great to see him. Just amazing. The kindness and friendliness is something that I definitely observed through the entire weekend with everybody. Again, these are people writing research. They're busy. They're practicing medicine. They're writing books. They have podcasts. They have platforms. Like, there's a lot that these people have going on, and to take an entire weekend to be here with the attendees was a lot. But not one time, not once did I ever see somebody say, I'm too busy to talk to you. I'm too busy to get a picture with you. They just come off the stage and start chatting with people. And by and large, with very few exceptions that I saw, did I see people like go into the green room and then take their private jet somewhere or whatever. They were very much not only like presenting, but also in this conference. They were learning from some of the other speakers as well. I really appreciated that. I appreciated the fact that I saw more people taking the stairs than were taking escalators. There were other conferences highlighting other things that were going on. The Gaylord's Rockies conference center that we were at was huge, and so there was multiple conferences going on for different things. And I saw people taking escalators all the time, and the low carb people really, like, I saw them take the stairs more than I saw them take the escalators. These presentations also are like several hours in a day. And you got to figure people have traveled, including myself, very sleep deprived. People have come from a long way. These are really quite technical presentations that they're making. They've got slides and they're presenting a lot of information that's very, very in depth, and all of these studies and how are these studies conducted. And I just got to say, I looked around at the audience, who was by and large the same audience throughout the 3 days. Not many people had to leave early and stayed for the whole thing. And you didn't see people drifting off to sleep at 2 p.m. You didn't see people, on their phones. You didn't see people not engaging with what was going on. And I think that alone is so different than most people's experience at a conference like that, when they're not on low carbohydrate diets and would be nodding off and would be, bored with the material and all this technical stuff. I just, as an observation, I didn't see a lot of that. People were alert and aware and very much participating in the conversation. So I thought all of that was really wonderful. I thought that was an interesting thing to observe. The conference went very smoothly, a few little glitches with technical stuff, but for the most part, it was great. As part of the conference, they were using an app called Whova, WHOVA, which showed you all the agenda. It posted all of the videos for all of the talks when they were completed there, so you could go back and review things if you wanted. You could see all of the attendees. So anybody who signed up for the conference, I knew they would be there, and I was able to scroll around and send messages to people like, yo, Dr. Mark Cucuzella, I'm so excited to see you again. Like, this is great. I'm so glad you're attending. And also, some of my friends that are maybe not the presenters, but they're the attendees, and I've seen them at other shows and met them at other places. And so the app was a wonderful part of the experience. If you're ever hosting a conference or you're into this kind of thing, I highly recommend checking out the Whova app. I thought they did a really nice job. And I knew, I had access to that maybe 6 weeks before the conference started. So as I was thinking about what I wanted to do as far as this podcast when I went to this show, I was thinking maybe I could bring my podcasting equipment. I could take some of the presenters aside into a quiet room and have all my podcasting stuff and ask them questions and film, record episodes. And I thought a little bit more, and I've really learned over time that the participants of these conferences are really quite diverse. And you really understand that every one of these people has a unique story of how they found low carbohydrate diets, usually through a lot of suffering. And I thought, rather than interview the presenters, who are amazing, a lot of them I've already talked to before or will be talking to very, very soon, maybe I could do shorter interview segments with the attendees. If I could get a random sample of people that were here, I could learn about why they were here, what's their story, if they plan on continuing doing the diet or not. I thought that might be a really fun way to see the conference from a different angle, from the angle of the diverse attendees who were there. So I created a Calendly link that I put on the app. The title of my post was, "Would you like to be hosted on Boundless Body Radio?" And I put an app out there and just said, hey, look, I would like to interview you if you're attending this conference. Here's open schedules on Calendly. You can go book a 10-minute spot to talk with me. We'll just go find a quiet place. My podcasting equipment was really cumbersome, but I found that you could get pretty decent audio just recording off of your iPhone, which, again, to say, if you're thinking about starting a podcasting host, you really don't need a lot of fancy equipment to be able to do it, to have a reasonable quality. And so people signed up, and there was 2 exceptions of people that did these interviews with me that I didn't know. So Buz and Bruce, you'll hear from them later. I had met them at Low Carb Salt Lake. I had asked them to be interviewed, so they were part of it. Knowingly ahead of time, I already knew them. I know their story, or at least some of it. Every other person on here was a stranger to me 5 minutes before we did these conversations. So I thought that was really fun. It was a great way to meet new friends, new people out there. And now I have literally lifelong friends that I will see and meet at these conferences forever. And so that is what you are about to listen to. This is a lengthy episode, so sorry, not sorry about that. I wanted to share all of their episodes. These are largely going to be unedited. There was a few things I need to go back and kind of edit, but for the most part, they're unedited. The quality is not going to be the same as it normally is, but we were in a conference hall, literally in the hall of the conference during breaks. And so you're going to hear ambient noise of people walking by and having conversations. You're also going to hear people stopping by on conversations, saying hi to their friends, and then dropping down on the couch and having an impromptu interview with us as well. Them sharing their stories, me asking questions and just being curious. The format of the interviews is I basically printed out like 4 or 5 different questions that I wanted the person to kind of in their head, like read through and pretend that I was asking them that question. That way you don't have to hear me ask the same questions every time. I just wanted them to go through like a similar kind of flow of their story. And the more that I did that, the less that I liked it. And I wanted to ask more spontaneous questions. So that kind of evolves through this conversation. These are not taken in chronological order, kind of mix them up a little bit. So they'll be in whatever order they're in. And one of the last one that we're going to end on is literally the last one that we did. I was outside, I was eating lunch, enjoying the Denver weather, which I can't believe how much the temperature fluctuates there. It was 1 degree when I got in, and it was like 60 degrees on this afternoon on the last day on the Sunday. So I was out eating lunch. I see 3 ladies who sit down to lunch and, they're eating chicken wings dipped in guacamole and bacon and red meat and passing it around and just having a great time. I'm like, these are my people. I love them already. So I went up and started talking to them and just had the idea, like, why don't we record? Why don't I ask them, why are you here? And let's just record and let's see what comes out. And sure enough, we got 3 more amazing stories. This was outside on a very windy day, so that one is definitely going to have some ambient noise of the wind. But this message is too important not to share, in my opinion. So I hope you stick with it. I hope you kind of deal with the not pristine audio quality to really listen. These are people. All of them have an amazing story, unexpected stories that I didn't know. I didn't know these people. I didn't know their stories. And hearing them talk about how they healed things it was really powerful. It was really meaningful for me to listen in, and it's really meaningful for me now to share this with you. So I really hope you enjoy this. Thank you to everybody who participated. You know who you are. I'm not going to read your names. I'll put them in the show notes, hopefully, but thank you so much for taking the time and being open and vulnerable with me to share everything that you have noticed with low carbohydrate. I'm going to step out of the way on this one as much as possible. I'm just going to create a quick little kind of sound bumper to break up the conversations. And yeah, again, like I said, I hope you really take a lot from this episode, and just know that if you are feeling alone in this journey, if you feel like the whole world is against you and you're trying to do low carb, but people offer you cake and they don't support you. They tell you that, eating red meat is bad for you. Fasting is going to kill you. All those things you hear, like, there is a community. There's a community out there. There's a lot of people, getting a little emotional. There's a lot of people out there who have healed themselves with this way of eating, and you can reach out. We can help you. We can help you. So, again, this was really special. I hope you really enjoy this one.
Hey, I'm Stephanie Welch, and I have been involved in the ancestral health field for about 13 years now. I've been interested in nutrition for about 15. For the last year or so, I've been working with the Price Pottinger Nutrition Foundation, which is the owners and publishers of the work of Weston A. Price, which is a dentist that a lot of people may be familiar with for his studies in nutrition back in the 1930s. I also personally I began with nutrition, but I expanded into looking at the mismatches that exist for us in all aspects of life. So my own work is under Recivilized Woman, and it looks at not only nutrition, but also fitness and mental health and relationships and sexuality and all the aspects of life that we have mismatches. So
Do you have a question? Why do you think a dentist almost 100 years ago still has so much influence on our health today?
The things that he was researching, original research, looking at indigenous cultures around the world is, it's stuff that can't be reproduced at this point in time. Many of the cultures that were in place then, and the differences between their traditional diets and the modernized diets have changed at this point in time. And it's harder to find a comparison of cultures that are so clearly flourishing on a natural diet and being able to compare it with the same group, same genetics, same environment, but who have transitioned to more modernized foods. And the contrast that he was able to see in that environment, and he was looking at the dental health in particular, but he of course saw that the rest of their health and their demeanor and everything else was also influenced by what they were eating. So it was a really unique opportunity to get a glimpse in that particular window of time of transition that people were experiencing and see the drastic differences that it had on their health.
It's amazing.
So my personal journey into health and nutrition started in my early 20s, and it actually had a lot to do with, I was dating someone at the time, and he was about 4 years older than me, and at 26, he was a bit overweight. He weighed about 270. And then over the next 4 years, he gained about another 80 pounds. We were just eating sort of college food, you could imagine, and got in the middle of that, got diagnosed with multiple sclerosis at about age 28, which is kind of ridiculous. And I could tell that lifestyle factors were at play, and I knew that I didn't want to go down that path. And so it really motivated me to start studying nutrition at that point in time, around 25 or so. And first, of course, like many people, I went down the vegetarian path and the low fat and the things that were being commonly recommended. And I didn't have any significant health problems at that point in time. I mean, I wasn't noticing any real issues, but when I got on the vegetarian diet, I actually started running into some digestive problems and really had some pretty terrible issues with gas, which was not great, as I decided to become a massage therapist at the time, and you're in a small room with somebody, you kind of don't want that to be the case. So it really made me wonder what was going on. I definitely didn't feel like I was feeling, more healthy than I started. But I found in 2010, the book that changed my mind and did about a 180 on everything was The Perfect Health Diet, by Paul and Xiaoxing Jaminet. And they did a great dive into different nutrients. And it was a largely nutrient focused approach to diet. But I also really appreciated the exploration of evolutionary biology and the looking at what is a digestive tract for. And, if you have mammals of all different kinds that have animal cells like we learn about in biology class, they actually all use the same fuel. So why is it that we have a different diet in the first place? And more so, how is it that our digestive tract is geared to take whatever that input is and convert it into ultimately the same output? And then seeing that as humans, we have reduced the size of our digestive tracts so much that it kind of clues us in to the idea that we must have been taking in nutrients somewhat closer to the output that our bodies actually needed and doing less transformation. So that helped me to understand why it made more sense to have like a higher fat diet at that point in time. And so I started following that in 2010, and I took enough effort to make it a predominant part of my food intake, and I got a subsequent partner really on board, and we had a great system of cooking and making almost all of our food at home. So for about 5 years, I had a really, really solid system. And that, I haven't stayed super strict after that, but having had that good of a basis and building up habits that I can often continue to utilize and go back to has been really helpful to me, to where I've been able to keep it a significant part of my life, but also, not have to be maybe as strict as some people who actually have gone further down and gotten into more health problems or had to counteract major issues.
It's a really good point. I think a lot of people can get back to a place where they can be a little bit more liberal with their food.
Yeah. I found that, it was for me, I love systems. I love to plan and prepare. You wouldn't believe the charts of groceries, meal planning. Oh, this needs to come out of the freezer on this date, and this goes in on this date to, thaw. It was great buying the bulk meats on like the CSA programs and planning it out and scheduling it. So on the one hand, for me, that's actually kind of fun. I enjoy those kind of systems and planning, and it gave me a good basis for then just being able to continue that later on my own and in different circumstances. And I've been able to keep it up enough and just enjoy the benefits and also, still occasionally eat things just for pure enjoyment and deliciousness and convenience. But it's good to have, the focus again, really, like I said, was about nutrient density. So I do try to prioritize that and also, use supplementation to help fill in some gaps and things like that. So a little bit of boost there, but for sure, one of the things that has stayed really consistent as far as the low carb aspect is whenever I have choices that involve, things that are more protein and vegetable oriented over pastas and breads. I mean, those are the easiest decisions for me to make is don't get a sandwich, get something that's, not on bread. Or when I make something, if I make spaghetti at home, it's about 80% sauce and a little bit of pasta just, for something to, accent it essentially.
Yeah, it's great.
But I loaded up with beef and, mushrooms and onions, and the emphasis is on filling everything up with the right kind of ingredients that I want to consume and not needing to fill myself up with a bunch of filler things of pasta and bread and all that kind of thing. So the planning ahead and ensuring that I've prepared and I've filled up all of my hunger and nutrient needs so that I'm not struggling, to meet those needs and having to make choices based on convenience or impulse. So a lot of planning.
Wow. That's great.
So I certainly anticipate continuing to do this. I can't really see why I would change. I am interested in additional tweaks, here and there. I'm kind of curious about the oxalate issues. I've been asking some people questions. We just interviewed Sally Norton at Price Pottinger recently in one of our journals, and it definitely brings up some thoughts about that. But, I'm kind of exploring and asking other people questions about that too, if that's, on the anti-nutrient side of things.
It's a weird one. That's a weird one.
Yeah.
We talk about it a lot.
Yeah. But I guess in terms of tips, I think what I said a minute ago was that if you're able to plan ahead and make sure that if your fridge is stocked with the things that you want to eat, if you've meal prepped ahead of time and you have, the foods that are your nutritionally preferred foods available and on hand, and so you're not having to make decisions when you're hungry, that is the best setup in my mind.
I think that's great advice. Stephanie, thank you so much for doing this.
All right. Thank you, Casey.
All right. Well, hey, my name's Tia Reid. I'm really excited to be here today talking.
Excited to talk with you.
Yeah, exciting stuff here at Low Carb Denver. Anyway, I'm a nutrition network coach practitioner. I'm also accredited by the Society of Metabolic Health Professionals, sugar certified and licensed by Benton Johnson's Addiction.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's been a journey, quite a journey. I started out really sick about 5 years ago and reached out to the carb addiction doc Doc Siwas
Yeah.
to help me on my journey. I was about 250 pounds, type 2 diabetes, insulin pump,
Wow.
about 180 to 200 units a day,
Wow.
and then Lantus at night,
Yeah.
shot at night, plus a array of other medications, over 20,
Wow.
actually. I was just sick, tired. I had low energy. I just didn't want to go anywhere. Didn't want to have my picture taken. And you see me now and I want to take a picture everywhere I go with everyone. So it really changes your life.
Yeah.
Anyway, we started the journey just to try to get off the medications.
What about all of that stuff made you decide to seek out help? Because there's so many people out there that get to that stage, that spot, but they don't ever seek out the right kind of help, and they just continue gaining and gaining and gaining, getting worse.
Yeah.
What was it about you that you think, as you're looking back, like made you decide to reach out when you did?
Well, actually, I have 3 kids. And they were worried about me. And my daughter's like, I'm not married yet, Mom. I want you to be at my wedding. And my son's like, I want you to play with our grandkids.
Yeah.
And my husband was really worried about me too.
Okay.
You know, and we had 2 businesses, and I just wanted to go home and sleep. You know, and I would sneak and lie and hide my food. So I knew I was, I was ashamed. I was ashamed.
Yeah.
About how I looked. And I didn't understand my addiction.
Sure.
And talking to Dr. Siwas, he told me right away, hey, have you ever heard of carb addiction? Because you have it.
You got it.
Yeah. And if you want me to help you, I can definitely help you. So we started virtual, because he's in Florida.
Yeah.
So anyway, he said, are you going to stick to this? Because if you are, we can start eliminating medications right now. Because I was on like several different statin medications. I was on Cymbalta and Wellbutrin for depression. Those were some of the last ones to go.
What was it like to hear that? I hear a doctor say, get ready, we're going to deprescribe.
It was scary. It was scary. I was scared, and I thought, I hope that I'm doing the right thing, but it was like a last resort, because I thought I was going to die any day anyway.
Yeah.
So me and my husband talked about it, and we're like, you don't have anything left to try. We got to try this.
Yeah.
So, and we started out with changing, never drink anything with carbohydrates in it. Then we moved to making sure that I was using the right kind of fats and eliminating all the seed oils and all that kind of stuff out of my cabinets. Anything with processed in a box, nothing from a box, and then it was fun, because we made new meals as a family. We cooked as a family, whole foods, nothing from a box, real vegetables. But today I'm only on one medication, and I kind of go on and off it. I have trouble with my uric acid levels just a little bit sometimes. But, my typical breakfast used to be a big bowl of fruit and oatmeal and
healthy.
And toast, because
Healthy.
that's what I was told by the diabetic educators. So, I told me I needed to eat every 4 hours. And Dr. Siwas is like, try to fast. I'm like, what? What are you talking about, fasting? Right. I've got to eat.
Yep.
But, and then you start eating this way and you're so full. And the low carb, high fat nutrition healed my body. And I was able to stop eating breakfast. Yeah. It wasn't the most important meal of the day, and then at noon, I'm like, I might even be hungry yet. So I'm just going to hold off a little longer. And sometimes it might be 1 or 2, but it's magical. And I want to spread the word and the healing word to other people, and I want to help other people. So I try to coach outside of the work that I do. I am the new director of nutritional services at the local hospital that I work at, but I coach people in the evenings after work.
Oh, that's amazing. I was going to ask, it seems to be a very difficult thing to practice and or preach low carb in the hospital setting.
Yeah.
Are you still finding that you have difficulty with that?
Oh, yeah, I do. But we've even implemented some. Of course, people have seen my journey and seen the weight loss, because I was 250 pounds. So I've almost lost 100 pounds now, because I'm around 150. So that just kind of melted off. And that wasn't why I went to him in the first place. It was to get off the medications, but the weight just came with it. And people saw that. So they're like, hey, what are you doing? I want to do it too, So we started implementing some keto items out in the cafeteria for staff.
Great.
So they have one choice. So
People
if they
have an
want to have
option.
it, they have an option. Now, patients, it's a different story because you got to get the med staff on board for, therapeutic carbohydrate restriction. And so I've got the clinical guidelines out there, to share. And the SMHP is a wonderful organization that allows you to print off the therapeutic carbohydrate restriction, the clinical guidelines that Del Height helped make.
Yeah.
And also I'm on the advocacy committee.
Okay.
So we've got some forms out there now that can help practitioners with how CGMs work, which was another magical tool that helped me aware of my own what foods and nutrition does to my own body. Because, everybody's body's different. So what works for me might not work for someone else.
Good point.
So, I'll eat something and I'll check my numbers. And if it's high, then I know, hey, I got to stay away from it. So I'm about on year 5 of eating this way. And I'm more carnivorous now than I was before because sometimes vegetables will make, they are carbohydrates. So there's a little bit, it does turn to sugar in your body a little bit. So
I have been surprised by that. I've learned that more recently. People with CGMs are noticing that vegetables are having an effect. And that surprised me.
Yeah. And plants want to live.
Yeah.
They want to live. So, but anyway, so I don't eat a whole lot of veg anymore.
Cool.
And it keeps me full for longer periods of time.
Great.
And I just love this way of eating. You know what I mean? It just keeps you full.
So you don't think you'll ever go off of it?
No, I don't really think I will. I mean, it's healed my body. And first of all, I started out with non-alcoholic liver, a fatty liver, which they said that I would never get rid of. And that was one of the first things to go within on the blood work. Doc would do blood work and you could see of what's happening in your body from the blood work that was going on. And it was gone within 3 months. Yeah. And I thought I'd have it for life. And, the statins that I was on, I thought I'd have to be on those for life. And I'm no longer on any of those. I was on 200 milligrams of I don't know how to say it, metabolic tartrate, and then 40 milligrams of lisinopril a day. And I no longer take it as well.
You've said a lot of big words in this interview.
Yeah. I hope I said them right.
I hope you said it right.
Yeah.
I'm not going to verify.
I have no idea. Yeah, I'm not a doctor. So, but the list was long. But I tell you what, one of the hardest things to get off of was the Cymbalta. And they actually put me on that because it also is supposed to be help you as a diabetic. So with your numbers, but at some point I even started just taking there's beads in there. Some of the beads out. It was kind of crazy. I didn't really know how many because they're so small.
Wow.
But it just takes them out, until I've finally tapered off those.
Cool. I'd be curious to see how your journey continues because you do hear so many people, especially with mental health and the carnivore diet seems to be just really an amazing tool that can be used specifically for that.
You know what's great is my husband had RA and he's like, you've come through so much. I'm just going to eat this way and see what it does for me. And he's totally, his inflammation is gone. He had knots on his hands, nodules, and it's gone. So it's definitely worth a try for everyone.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, it sounds like you got into this way of eating in a really good way, kind of stepped into it, more slowly. What tips do you give your beginner, somebody that wants to try this? Where should somebody start?
Well, I say focus on one meal at a time. If you mess up, so what? You mess up, get back on to the next meal. Don't wait till the next day because that'll turn into days and maybe weeks and months. So you mess up one time, just get on the wagon the next meal.
That's great.
One meal at a time, one day at a time.
That's great.
That's all it takes. And also there's a whole lot of information and education out there that people can take. I'm a nutrition network coach practitioner, like I said, but they have online courses that people can take and they're magical. Yeah.
Wow. Well, Tia, thank you so much for this conversation.
You're welcome. It was great.
It was great.
Thanks.
Casey, how great to see you.
So great to see you. Buz and Bruce, my friends, we met at Low Carb Salt Lake, right? Keto Salt Lake.
April Easter weekend.
22.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Wow. Well, it was so great to meet you. It's been so fun to be friends with you guys, and I just absolutely love your spirit and everything about you. Before we get into what we're going to talk about today, can you comment on the things that we just experienced just this morning? We listened to 5 speakers just this morning. How incredible was that experience?
all out of the park. Like I'd always share at these. I've heard these speakers, many of them before, but I think my level of comprehension expands with each conference I go to. That's what gets me to go and book the next one. Not only the speakers, but the participants, the energy there. There's no way to get to get the information from a YouTube video, as much information, um, th- having it supplemented with the audience, the speakers, just the whole package seems to reach me a lot better. And I think for most people the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah. These people are dealing in science, and the science they're dealing in is the science of human beings, not political science.
Yeah.
And it's like to come here and learn more from them each time helps me as a grassroots person. I'm not a clinician, but I'm a grassroots person, and I have experience, strength, and hope that I can take what I'm learning from these amazing folks and present some of that to help other people and assist them getting into keto, carnivore, for their health. Mine has improved drastically.
Wow.
Yeah.
Before we get into that, I would just like to say that you guys are retired. You told me that you used to take trips all over the place, which you still do, but you used to go scuba diving, I believe.
Yes,
Yep, that's right.
You don't do that anymore. You instead come to very, very technical medical conferences about low carb.
Who would have thought?
Who would have thought?
I tell you what, I'm blessed because I have two of the best coaches ever. The first coach is my spirit brother here of almost 35 years.
amazing.
He can get into the technical things. I get a general feeling and impression, and I follow, what all of you, and you too, you're part of this whole thing, follow the things that you folks share about how I can have optimal health and assist other people in achieving that too.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really powerful stuff. So what was your life like before you found low carbohydrate and how did you find it?
Well, interestingly enough, before I found it, I was already 71. And I think people who are getting into this, better eating for better health, I think they need to examine their early childhood. So it's about the early childhood. It's about the emotions, the physical, and the physical is the healthy eating and fitness, and then continued spirit awareness.
That's very well said. Were you guys suffering with any kind of medical conditions?
I had the average conditions of someone in my age demographic, 65 now, high lipids, and interestingly enough, I had a physician that was nudging me towards low carb, but I didn't get it, and he's since retired. And for instance, we talked about the book Sugar Busters. We both identified with that, and that was all about came out after Atkins, and he encouraged me to eat, like, have some bacon and eggs, but what I'm thinking, but I thought I was supposed to have oatmeal and things such as that. Outwardly overweight. I've lost 40 pounds since then, but I was not going crazy at the gym thinking that was the route to go, and was frustrated with that. I'm not sure what flipped the switch with going low carb. I started with keto, and that didn't settle too well. But once I heard about the concept of carnivore, after my mind kind of exploded, trying to comprehend that, and went on that, it was like, this is so easy, and the energy's up, and then the weight started coming off, and it just kind of unfolded and happened, and the next chapter is being more thirsty for information, the YouTube videos, and then finding out about conferences. And here we are talking to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for me, 10 years before
You're doing what?
we began this scuba diving around the world,
Yeah.
I had to take a sleep apnea machine with me.
Wow.
Yeah. So this whole process revealed I do not take 5 medications, no sleep apnea machine, and I'm just getting healthier, as we go along.
Now, how many people do you know that are your age that are not yet doing what you're doing are in that condition? Like
Most.
How many
Absolutely.
people do you know are not taking any medications?
Oh, not
Oh,
taking
yeah.
any medications.
I should have phrased that a little better.
No, I don't know of anybody my age demographic.
And we just found a new physician that is on board with this, and anytime you go to a doctor's office and you don't have a list of meds, it gets their attention.
It took us 4 years.
yeah.
It took us
Yeah.
4 years doing this to finally find a primary that was okay with the way we're eating, and we're 98% carnivore.
Nice.
Yeah,
Wow.
that many years to find someone locally.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. I'm really glad that you were able to find somebody. And I think that speaks to how this message is getting out. I know that's a big priority for both of you. It wasn't enough for you to learn the information for yourself. Similar to the reason why I do this podcast. It's not enough for me to know this stuff from my life and the life of my loved ones. I want to share this. I want to get this message out
Absolutely.
there. And that's been really important for you. So what has it meant to you to be able to go out and help teach others and share, if nothing else, just your example, just your spirit?
We have folks to our home, and we eat carnivore. We'll provide a vegetable for them. We have people who've seen how we've changed, but they don't necessarily want to change. We met these folks at a meetup in Miramar Beach, with 20 folks or so in the group. And the guests there were the man we have followed for 4 years on YouTube, Dr. Ken Berry, and then Nisha and the family. This is inspirational, like what happens and what we've seen here today and yesterday. And as you know, all the other conferences we've been to.
I will say that we don't necessarily go out and try to convince people.
No.
It's hard to resist that, but it's what's happening now is people are seeing, noticing, and asking questions, and then sometimes that's as far as it goes. But other times you can kind of tell now how serious they are. Most recently, we had an acquaintance call, reach out, and she was ready. And I went so far as to say, how would you feel if we came over and went through your cupboards and refrigerator? And she was all on board with that.
That's amazing.
And I must say, it had to have been humbling for her.
Yeah.
And it was for me, because that was getting into some personal stuff, into their food stash.
Sure.
And she was open and ready to. We filled up all kinds of bags, and
she said to us when we were sitting down before we went through her cupboard to her refrigerator, she said, "I had a bag of chips, but I ate them last night before."
They're going in the trash either way. It's just whether they go through your body or directly to the trash.
My history began in the recovery of early childhood. I call it 1981. I went to AA. Well, I learned in AA, you don't pull people off the bar stools, and you don't pull people out of McDonald's.
Yeah.
It
great.
has to unfold.
That's great.
And
ironically, somebody you just mentioned, Dr. Ken Berry, recently posted a video of him ordering burger patties at McDonald's, which has been my favorite hack. I haven't been to McDonald's in 15, and I've been there the last 2 days to order burger patties. They've been delicious. Yeah.
Listen,
Life changer.
Life changer.
part of my history was supersizing it for 25 years at McDonald's.
I would have done that too. That's great. One of my favorite parts about attending these conferences is meeting new friends and new people. And we're having these impromptu conversations for this conference, and we've met some new friends. So let's say hi. Introduce yourselves if you don't mind and say, what is your favorite part about low carbohydrate? How did you find this diet to begin with?
Hi, I'm Emily Harveaux, and I have lost 150 pounds through combining
Wow.
keto, intermittent fasting, and carnivore. I am a 2.5-year carnivore, and I'm now a carnivore coach. I help people with Bella's Mighty Networks, and so we gather and meet and encourage each other and problem solve. And so people have no idea how to start carnivore, what to do, it's some people still laugh when you even mention the name carnivore. And so for me, this has just been an incredible journey, and I have enjoyed helping people get started, helping them figure that hack out, because I've been doing that hack for 2 years with the burger patties. I mean, dude, I'm all over it. Right. And I've done it myself. I've made the reel myself. Like Ken Berry made the reel. I mean, come on.
Yeah,
it's gonna reach like millions. Yeah. So, and we just love these events, these low carb events, these carnivore events. We've made such great friendships, and we are so compassionate and just passionate to the mission of it. And so I think that just being together helps us really stay strong and keep our strength and keep our enthusiasm. And, it's a world full of crap food out there, and there's just disgusting processed food every time you turn around. And so having like other people that eat like this and that are like, we are fine. This is a completely valid lifestyle.
Yeah.
So this has just been my story and my journey.
That's
and
really
these conferences really help keep.
That's really amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. I just want to point out that while you were sharing your story, one of the most well-respected, well-renowned, and 3-time guests of our show, Dr. Mark Cucuzella, just walked by and said, Buzz and Bruce, my favorite people. Hey! Not bad. We got one more person to meet.
Oh, I'm Joel Harveaux. I'm her lesser half, I guess you could say, or not as good looking half. No, I've pretty much rode her coattail. She's the one that kind of first started doing the keto and all that kind of stuff, and I saw the huge difference, an amazing difference it made for her. And so I was, I've lost like 30 pounds on the keto thing. I did that following her example, where it's like, I need to give up the sugar. I saw how much sugar I was putting in my coffee every morning, and I was the only one in my family drinking coffee at that point. The kids weren't. And I'm like seeing that sugar bowl go from full to empty over the course of a week or two. And I'm like going, that's only me. And it kind of hit home. So that's where it started for me, was giving up the sugar, then started giving up more of the sugar in the food, and then kind of moving up to the full keto, with a little bit of fasting thrown in there as well. And then when she, we were just talking about this morning, she was saying, I was talking about when she decided to go carnivore, I'm like, in the back of my brain, I'm being supportive, but in the back of my brain, I'm like going, okay, we'll see how long this lasts with you not eating vegetables. Where are you going to get all your vitamins and all that kind of stuff? You're going to be hitting the curb here in, a couple months, and we'll see that. And then a couple of months went by, and she's just looking more beautiful and more healthy and doing better and thriving. And then, at the year point, I'm like, I can't deny this. This isn't a crash and burn that's happening. It's a takeoff, and so, okay, well, all right, let me give it a shot. And, she got me to commit for a month to begin with. And then once I was on board for that, all of a sudden somewhere in there it morphed to 3 months without her telling me. Suddenly I'm like, wait, I signed up for a month. And she's like, no, it was 3 months, and now I'm, going on about a year and 3 months now. So
that's really amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
So been fantastic.
That's really amazing. I did a recent episode of somebody who just started a carnivore diet, and we spent a good 20 minutes on our episode. It was on her show where she was describing some of the benefits that she noticed about carnivore. And we talked a lot about so many different things. We hung up the call, and 5 minutes later, she was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I forgot to say that I lost 5 pounds in 2 weeks. And I brought that up a lot. That is the carnivore diet. Like, you'll forget that you just lost a bunch of weight. You nonchalantly just said, yeah, I lost 30 pounds.
That's right.
It's not even like that big of a deal. Like, it's cool. It's great. It's amazing. But that's not like what you're leading with oftentimes.
It's a side issue. It's a health first. It gets your health turned around, and it transforms everything, and you feel so much better, and you get kind of your medical improvements and your performance improvements and just how you're feeling, your vitality. And it's a thing that you can't know until you do an experiment with it and move forward with that. And I agree, because that is a side note. It's like, okay, the last 50 pounds of my weight loss was carnivore, but that's like the side note. It's like how good I felt going from maybe a low carb got me to feeling 80% better. Carnivore is what got me to that 97% better. And so that feeling better position is the powerful message of it. But you're right. Most people tend to, Joel looks amazing now. He's got muscles cut out from everywhere. that he's never had this body before. So he's in his late 50s, like sporting like something really spectacular. And so, I mean, all that stuff comes, but the weight loss is part of it. But you're right. It's just a side. Yeah.
I guess my final question for all of you would be on that note. I think that was a really good segue. And Buz, I want to conclude with you because you were the first to bring it up, and very much related to what you said, like the physical, the mental, the emotional, all of it is a part of this. And I just want to comment or learn from you guys, if you could comment, like, what has it been like, again, not only to experience what I would say the mental, the physical, but really specifically the spiritual. In what ways, especially taking a step from low carb or keto to carnivore, do you feel like your spirituality specifically has changed?
I think just there's the thing called carnivore calm that some people experience, and just kind of feeling more even keeled, just kind of just relaxed and just kind of in the moment, I guess, a little bit more.
Great way to say it.
Yeah, for me, it's the absence of noise. And so I had experienced that because of fasting. And fasting, you get to kind of there's a lot of spirituality in fasting as well. But, then you eat food and it ruins it all. And so the carnivore journey for me was having food be my nutrition. The best food I could ever imagine tasting, but food was food. Food was nourishment, food was fuel. And so the spirituality of having so much open space in my mind and so much open space to explore other things, because that part was neutral. Yeah. That was the huge part for me.
That's amazing. Very well said. How about you, Bruce?
So I'd say I've always been fairly even keel, but I can certainly speak to the point that I don't get affected by things so much anymore in my head. I don't obsess. I don't compulse, and a lot of that is under the radar. I'm doing it in my head, but that's not happening anymore with that. Yeah, reduced anxiety.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And we're blessed because we met in church. However, I've shared that with you before. However, for me, it's learning to be non-judgmental of myself and then others, not throwing stones and not judging other people.
Wow.
It's an amazing journey. I mean, you think about, I'm getting lost in it because the quietness, the peacefulness, Joseph Murphy, the power of your subconscious mind. Most folks don't know and understand everything you say after I am is what you're going to create in your life today, tomorrow, the next day. It's like the whole karma effect. Yeah, what you put out there comes back to you.
Yeah.
But I have to use, and I live in a lot of meditation. I listen to a lot of tapes from a lot of folks who have written, and most of them are dead now, the spiritual background. I don't know if you do yoga, folks that do yoga. Paramahansa Yogananda. I mean, he takes the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita and he combines them and shares and communicates with people how to live your life in a loving, happy way.
Yeah. It's amazing how much nutrition is a part of that. It's always such a joy to run into you guys, old friends, and some new friends today. Thank you all so very much for stopping by. This was a really fun conversation.
Perfect. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Hi, Casey. My name is Kristen Lum, and I'm a naturopathic doctor and acupuncturist. I found low carb because in menopause, I found that everything I was doing, I wasn't losing the weight. I was actually gaining more weight. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to do low carb keto. And it's the only thing plus intermittent fasting. I have to add that in there that has helped me kind of just maintain. And I actually shrunk a size. So now I'm like, the benefits I notice on that are I have mental clarity is better. My memory is better now. I was having trouble kind of remembering names or people or what. what I gave them. And
You hear that a lot with menopause.
yes, like you don't have the recall like you used to.
Yeah.
I wasn't like sharp being like, here's this podcast, here's this person to read. So I feel like my mental clarity has been enhanced through low carb.
No, that's
I
great.
continue planning to do it. I've done it 4 years now because
Wow.
that's when I started perimenopause. Now I'm postmenopause. It's a lifestyle for me now. I will promote this and do this for the rest of my life because I know it works. If I do have a day where I do a high carb day, the next day I'll fast or do no carbs in that day. And just do like one snack and one meal to reset me and then continue on the low carb.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you mentioned low carb and you mentioned fasting. And I think when you've been in this world for so long, those two things are just kind of synonymous. And you just know, like if you go low carb, you're going to be fasting. It's really easy.
Yes.
Did you go in that order or did you try to struggle through the fasting
intermittent
first?
fasting first.
Ooh.
And I went 15 hours. Now I do 18 plus. And it's easy each year that you do it. The first year it was really hard. I did exactly 15 or maybe 12 for a few months. And then I started increasing. And now it's just a lifestyle for me 4 years later. So the intermittent fasting is easier for me now.
Yeah.
I do have days where I slip up though. And then I just make sure I get back on it and maybe do a whole day fast, which is tough. Or I just do one dinner of low carb and I fast for that, how many hours that is.
Yeah.
But I always usually try to eat within a 6-hour window.
Cool.
And low carb.
Yeah, great. And so what low carb, if it's low carb, what foods are you most commonly including?
I eat a lot of like grass-fed burger and avocado, eggs, butter, grass-fed butter. I love Kerrygold butter. Nuts, only a handful. The problem with nuts is that they can cause digestive distress because of the leptins in them. So I only do a handful a day. So if people are replacing nuts for chips and stuff, it's really hard because you might have some gastric distress from that. So I usually mainly try to do, chicken, fish, eggs, meat, and then tons of greens. Like you got to add greens to everything. So like eggs, greens, and a piece of sausage or something like that, or bacon. But I don't eat breakfast. So, but I'm just, for those who are listening. Or like a chia bowl, I'll put that a can of coconut milk, put it in your chia seeds, let it soak overnight. The next day you can do a little bit of nuts, some real salt. That's the brand. I'll do coconut flakes and make it a real high fat. That's a really high fat, low carb breakfast that you can do, or lunch or snack. But mainly I do a lot of kale. I chop up a whole thing of kale every week and keep it in my fridge.
Wow.
And so then I can just add it to like a bowl food. I love bowl food. So it'll be like greens and tiny bit of sweet potatoes sometimes, but a lot of protein like chicken or fish or beef or steak. And then a ton of greens. And then I'll add some seeds into that too, like pumpkin seeds sometimes, or even blueberries. Because a lot of times if you don't add a sweet to your meal, you'll crave that sweet after. So I'll either do like a monk fruit sweetener in some tea with my dinner, or I'll put blueberries in the meal. And then I make all my own dressing. So lately my latest one is like a tahini. I use paleo mayo, tahini, lemon juice, Dijon mustard, and I mix that all together and put that in the bowl food.
Sounds
so it's
great.
a nice fat to add to anything. And you can put that on a burger. I don't do dairy because I have a dairy intolerance, but I used to do a lot of dairy when I didn't know that until I did my genetic testing. But
Yeah. No, well, we talk about all the time, like on our show, like you got to know where you are. Do you need to be abstinent or do you need to moderate? And I found for me, if I had a little sweet, I would have all the sweet. And so I have to abstain. So I'm super jealous. I'm listening to you and how you've been able to balance these things out. That's why I have to be fairly strict carnivore most of the time.
Not even blueberries.
I can't. The thing I noticed, I started playing with fruit that was growing in my neighborhood 2 summers ago. And like a piece of fruit would fall on the ground, very limited, obviously, in the time of year, but I pick it up and eat it between clients. And I just noticed like 20 minutes later, I was ravenously hungry and I experienced a blood sugar crash. So it sucks. I don't want to be the one going around telling people not to eat kale or nuts. It sucks. It sucks. And so it's cool that you found that balance and you're able to moderate. I think that's fantastic.
And for those people too, it's more like, okay, avocado and 2 hard-boiled eggs, smash it together with some real salt. That's your meal. And then you won't crave
That's great
sugar.
advice.
So that's a real good, easy meal that I bring that to work because I don't have to cook anything.
Easy.
So I'll make a hard-boiled eggs a bunch a week and do that.
Nice.
But yeah, so I don't do a fruit in all my meals, but sometimes
You can
in
include it.
case
That's
you
great.
want this.
I love that.
Yeah.
No, that's great. Is this your first low carbohydrate conference?
It is actually.
What has your experience been like so far?
Oh, I love this conference. I want to come every year. Yes, I'll come back every year.
What is it about it? You can watch
You know what?
all of
It's
these
less-
speeches on YouTube.
Yes, the people are great. Usually, I've come to a lot of these, I have to get CE credits every year. And it's like they're so strict with like you have to check off the box if you went into this lecture, and it's very regimented. And this one's a lot more just easy going, I would say. And great people, great people whom I've never really met on stage, great doctors and the speakers.
Yeah.
It's just
You don't
amazing.
assume also that like these speakers who are, world-renowned experts are just going to be like in the halls. They're going to be available and you can just go up and be like,
Yes.
yo, what's up?
And they're all been really nice and receptive. I've
Yep.
talked to a bunch of them, and they're very, very receptive
Yeah.
and nice.
Yeah.
Even though they're so busy.
Yep, totally. And don't you think there's something to the energy of having so many like-minded kind of people around that are all trying to do the same thing?
Oh yes, I'm an energy gal. Everything's intention and energy. And there's something here when I come. I would say I'm a junkie with seminars and conferences, because it's just the energy brings you up, and you go back home, and it's like if I can get some tidbits in each seminar, each lecture, and then I bring it home and implement it, it's just great for my patients to feel my energy lifted
Yeah.
and then have them lifted in practice, in the clinic room. So I love it.
That's great.
It's like, this is how I get filled up.
Yep,
right?
totally. And then, you get to go out and share that with the world, which I
Yes,
absolutely
with
love.
everybody.
Well, it's been super fun to get to know you, and we're now friends, and we can always be
Yes,
friends, and I will
yes,
see you next
Casey.
year for sure.
Yes, thank you so much. It's so
Awesome.
nice to be on.
So I'm Chris Stadtherr. I'm a MD physician. I was trained in family medicine, and then transitioned into hospital medicine, which I've done for the last 14 years. And then now I started a clinic of my own focused on metabolic health,
Wow.
obesity medicine, et cetera. So board certified in obesity medicine as of a couple of years ago. But really what brought me to low carb initially was when I was working in the hospital, and my time spent there seeing all the horrible end stage complications of poor metabolic health. And there's a particular moment with the diabetic patient whose glucose was out of control, 300s. And of course we have them on the standard insulin.
300.
Yep.
Where it should
Yeah.
be 80.
Less than 100. Yeah.
Nice.
And in the hospital, the accepted range is 70 to 180. They're a little bit lax with that. And of course, we're throwing insulin at the guy, and he's on his usual meds and so on. And I walk into the room after just looking at his glucoses, and he had just polished off a plate, giant Belgian waffle, fruit, syrup, orange juice.
Oh my God.
I was like, what in the world? Couldn't believe it.
This is like Gary Fettke. You were experiencing what Gary Fettke
Yeah,
always
yeah.
talks about almost at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. And so I stormed out of the room, called the cafeteria, and asked why. What's going on here? Why did this patient have this ridiculous breakfast when he's on a quote unquote diabetic diet? And long story short, the diabetic diet allowed 60 grams of carbs per meal, plus 3 times a day. That's 3 meals per day, plus a couple of 15 to 30 grams carb snacks. So they could conceivably get 240 plus grams carbs in the day in the hospital when they're acutely ill, and then we're chasing their glucoses all the time with insulin, which is the very wrong way to deal with the diabetes. And so that launched me into a whole bunch of research on my own, and this is where I discovered Dr. Westman and some other researchers in the earlier days. I can't remember the name, but have you heard of the low bag, the bioavailable glucose? So it's kind of a code word for low carb back early in the research.
Yeah. I can't recall it right now, but
I'm blanking on the name. He was out of the Minneapolis VA.
Okay.
And because I did some training there when I was in residency.
Wow.
Med school. And then so digging through all this research, I'm like, hey, this makes sense. Like this is the way to do it. And I said, well, I'm going to try it myself. So I'm not going to recommend it if I haven't tried it. And so that's what got me into low carb initially.
Were you dealing with any health issues yourself?
So, I was overweight, not terribly, probably 25 pounds more than I am now. Had reflux, had this persistent knee pain, just a patellofemoral pain, just inflamed. I got irritated with stairs and biking and whatever. And then the big one that I didn't really appreciate until afterwards, that was related to my nutrition, was every time I got a cold, I would get a lingering cough, just a dry cough. It would last months, like 5 or 6 months. And just something that I learned to live with, basically. It was like, this was all through high school, college, med school. Constantly had this cough. And at some point I went to an allergist who specialized in chronic cough and put me on a steroid inhaler, and voila, got rid of it. But next time I get a cold, wham, it's back.
Come on, man. Well, this is just aging. This is just dad bod. It's aches and pains. Doesn't it suck to get older?
Right. And so after this is well after training, when I went low carbs, basically 2014, and then I would get a cold, and well, first of all, I would get sick much less frequently. Shocker. And then I would never got that cough. I was like, holy cow, this is amazing. And I never had that lingering cough again, no matter how sick I got. But of course, that was rare because my immune system was so much better
consistent.
too.
So consistent with what everybody says.
Yeah. So the reflux went away, the knee pain went away. I had more energy, and I never had that persistent cough, which was diagnosed as cough variant asthma, by the way. I haven't used an inhaler since.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
that's amazing. So you're seeing all these benefits in your own life. You're realizing like what's going on in the system. How were you starting to implement some of these things with your patients?
Yeah, it was a challenge because the hospital is so rigid in terms of the dietitians running the show on nutrition, and there's a lot of competing interests in the hospital. The patient wants to have their cake and eat it too. The dietitians are kind of slaves to the dietary guidelines as they were trained, and they really can't veer far from it. But they also, in my experience, they also believe it firmly.
Yeah,
they're steadfast in following the dietary guidelines.
This is what we learned.
Exactly.
This is what you should do. You're not doing it right. So let's coach behaviors that you can do it right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's kind of from my perspective too. Like, hey, I just spent how many tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars on this education. It must be state of the art. It must be current. It must be accurate. I must be getting the best education, right? Look how much debt I have coming out of it. Yeah. And I'm sure that dietitians feel the same way. Like, I just went through dietetic school. Yeah. This must be correct. I get it. And so as part of this whole self-discovery, I launched a pilot project in the hospital, implementing a 45 gram per meal, carbohydrate per meal restricted diet, right? Not that big. We're talking one slice of bread. And holy cats. Okay. All sorts of rage from the dietitians over it.
Really?
Oh yeah. They hated me over it. And I showed them the data. I showed them all this research I've been uncovering. And, one of the physicians on the committee that I was working on was very much in support of it. And he wouldn't necessarily go to bat for me, but he's like, go ahead. Let's do this. Let's see how it pans out. And I got some interesting and favorable data, although I didn't have the support to do a robust project.
Yeah.
So I worked to get this off the ground, and there was just no support. So I got some very limited data. It's not a rigorous scientific pilot project, but
it's anecdotal. If it's working, it's working.
Right. And so then, increasingly, I was talking to patients in the hospital about this, like, hey, here, you're diabetic, or whatever else is going on that was clearly insulin resistant manifestations. And so I would talk to them about diet and lifestyle, and like, hey, you can reverse your diabetes. You can get off your insulin or all these other medications and all this ridiculous blood pressure medication you're on. And patients loved it. They
loved it.
Loved it. Absolutely loved it. Doc, you're the first person to ever talk to me about nutrition. Like, I believe it. I know, because I came from the same system that they were all trained by, right? I know what it was like. Minimal education, really no innovative thoughts in terms of nutrition, lifestyle, et cetera. It was just dietary guidelines.
You just always hear that people are lazy, they're slobby, they're not going to follow the advice, they're not trying. I have not found that to be the case. People are trying with the wrong advice. That sounds exactly the same as what you're talking about.
For sure. So yeah, patient after patient would just walk away so empowered, like, yes, I'm going to do this. I would get follow-up emails from patients saying, hey, I'm off my insulin in 2 weeks after talking with you. I'm like, haha. Well, like, how can I? Then I was starting to think, how can I bring this to more people? How can I even follow up with my patients in the hospital? Because once they leave the hospital, we're done. There's no patient-physician relationship at that point. And so that's where the idea for my clinic started coming about. And then that's what I've been doing now for a year and a half, focused on metabolic health, reversing diabetes, dealing with, addressing obesity, weight loss, et cetera.
That's amazing. So what does it mean to you when you come to a conference like this and you see so many other people, patients, doctors, people like me, trainers, nutrition coaches, like all of these people that found something so amazing that they can't shut up about it. They start their own clinics.
Right.
What is it like to be in a room with like-minded people, learning from these people? What does it feel like?
Yeah. It's very inspiring, very reassuring too. That we have a lot of like-minded people who are committed to this ultimate goal. And let's face it, I don't shame anyone in healthcare. I think everybody in healthcare means well.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's an issue of education and awareness. I didn't realize this data was out there until 2014. So I went many years without knowing it.
Yeah.
But once I did, I can't look back.
Yeah.
And so it's super cool to see other people that have discovered it and are implementing it in various ways. Because it's like some of the talkers have said, this is probably more of a grassroots change that must happen. Is people need to find their successes, basically advertise it to their docs, and it'll creep its way up.
Yeah.
And doctors are going to have to insist on changes.
Yeah.
I've met so much resistance in trying to do that. Not going to give up, but there's just so many things in place that make it difficult. So there's lots of challenges.
Chris, that story is so impressive. It's very consistent with what I see, and it gives me a lot of hope that other healthcare professionals out there could be like you. They are doing the best that they can. This information is not widely known now, but we may be closer to a tipping point. And so thank you so much for taking the time to stop by and share your story. That's really so amazing. So
certainly. I appreciate it.
Okay, hi, I'm Olivia Khwaja, and I am here from the UK. I'm just outside of London, and this is my second large conference. It's really exciting to be here.
What was your first?
Low Carb Down Under, just a few months ago in Gold Coast, Australia, which was also really cool.
That's quite a trip for you.
Yeah, I'm actually part of a charity called the Public Health Collaboration. And we are looking to try and help educate people and improve people's health, talking directly to the public, but also the medical community, and also doing some political lobbying on this topic. So
does that have anything to do with the Unwins?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
So, Dr. Unwin is the chair of our scientific advisory committee. I'm on the board of trustees alongside a couple of my colleagues that are here.
Cool.
We've traveled over as well. So yeah, we're really, excited and inspired, to be doing that role, because it's really such an opportunity for us to really shape how we change people's health. And we're all very, very passionate about that, but also to be here and connecting with all of our international friends.
That's amazing.
Space. Yeah.
We've had the honor of hosting both Jen and David at the same time, and I just was blown away. Like, I cannot believe I'm talking to both of you right now. They are
they're
the
lovely.
most
They're amazing.
wonderful people on the
Yeah,
planet.
they are like the power couple of Low Carb.
Totally. It's great.
So yeah, they're very involved in the charity, and our new board of trustees that were appointed last year, we are been going through a process of getting to know each other and thinking about this area and, you know, exchanging ideas. And we are kind of at the point now where we're pretty clear that we are really focused on metabolic health. Because our name is Public Health Collaboration, there was maybe a little question mark on, you know, is it something bigger than metabolic health? Could it be something to do with the water or to do with the air or other public health issues? But that's never been the intention of why we were conceived, which was, I can talk about that in a minute. And we've always been here for metabolic health. So we're now really pressing forward on how we can really make a difference in this space as an organization.
In your opinion, why is nutrition the biggest factor? You mentioned a lot of things that could potentially be really harmful. Why is nutrition the biggest factor to you? Because I agree. Like, I think it is.
It's definitely the most wide-reaching, and I don't know if it's a huge factor. There's no doubt about it. It's how we all live our lives. It's the quality of life we have. It's how long we're on this planet. So there's nothing to take, like you say, to take away from how important it is. But that doesn't mean that other things are not important as well. The reason we are not really focused on those things is because we are set up and we were conceived to be originally about trying to help people with type 2 diabetes. So the people that have been appointed to our scientific advisory committee tend to have a very deep knowledge of different metabolic issues. So that's what we've been set up to do, really. So we're not trying to kind of do something which is beyond our scope and our capabilities, because that would just be foolish. And we've got pretty much enough to do with metabolic health. 80% of the illnesses that our National Health Service treat are to do with metabolic health. So that's pretty big in itself and daunting on its own without us thinking
really
about
staggering.
something else. Yeah. And we're also a charity. We're a pretty small charity. We're pretty much made up of volunteers all the way through. So it's not really feasible for us to think of something bigger than what we've already tried to bite off. So, but still, we're just hugely excited about it and just want to focus on it now. So,
how did you get into all this?
So I spent the last kind of 24 years or so working for big companies, always in strategy and marketing. So we have two big national companies in the UK, British Airways, British Gas, and I was working on both those companies. Took some time out to recover from extreme burnout of doing that kind of role at a high level, and thought that I'd just have a little task to do on my to-do list of things you never get to do when you're working. It's just seeing how I could prevent myself from getting some of the chronic illnesses that I was concerned about. My parents had type 2 diabetes and Alzheimer's between them, and we nursed them through that and other illnesses they had for 10 years. Which was a huge, burden on us, and something obviously we would always do. But it was a hard process for us to go through. And so I always had it in my mind that I'm going to have these diseases. There's nothing I can do about it. And I thought, well, I'll just do some research and just check if there's anything. I can just eat a few more blueberries a week or something that might just reduce the risk of actually getting those in time. So that's where I started. And then I fell down this rabbit hole of finding out, oh, okay, so I don't actually have to get these diseases. Disease is a choice. Who knew? I wish I'd known that when my poor parents were, struggling through their years. And that was mind-blowing to me as someone who's generally, up to date on topics in the world and generally educated. That is not only, a major issue. I feel like we've all been conned and we've all been put into this situation that nobody's trying to get us out of. So I then said, well, am I going to go back to a corporate life and do another job, or am I going to actually use the skills that I've accumulated into this space, which I'm now very, very passionate about? So that's why I kind of ended up in the charity that I'm in. I was keto for a couple of years and then gone to carnivore in the last year. Really thriving on carnivore and really actually very excited about carnivore because, having listened to a lot of people, I really believe it is the species appropriate diet for us. It's a hard message for people to take though, if they are somewhere very different in their diet. So I appreciate that's a slightly different message. And the main message from people has to be about getting off processed food and getting onto lower carb types of food, I think. And if you get to the point where you want to optimize even beyond that, then I think carnivore is fantastic.
The way I have found it in my experience is like when I put clients on low carb, they do well.
Yep.
When I put clients on keto, they do even better. They lose
Yep.
fat. But when they go carnivore, they heal. There's healing, like things that they have dealt with for years and years and years, just magically go away. And nobody cares about the weight loss. And I thought the point that Sean Baker made yesterday was so impressive and valuable that, like, what if I told you that you would die of heart disease? Let's say we're wrong about cholesterol. Everybody here is wrong about cholesterol. You're going to die of heart disease in 3 years. Would you stop carnivore? And people say no. Like, no, I'd rather eat this way.
So true. You know, we've got to stop looking at it as, you know, we're accumulating some major issue in the future. And in fact, I was speaking to him about it last night. It's like, just be healthy tomorrow, be healthy today, be healthy tomorrow. And that already begets what will happen in the future to, 99% of the time. If you're feeling great now, it's more than likely that means that you've got a optimal health as much as you can have it.
That message has really changed my opinion of any kind of blood markers or any other kind of testing. How do you feel today? I think that's the best way to know that you'll feel great tomorrow and beyond. I think that's a great point.
I think it is. I think, and also I think that there's, people don't know that they feel bad. Like, you get so used to carrying the burden of disease that you also don't realize that there is something better. So even when I was keto, it felt like, well, why would I bother trying carnivore? Everything is so great right now. I'd already lost loads of weight. I was already feeling fantastic. But you don't know what you don't know as well. You haven't experienced it. So, I tried it because I was talking to someone who's a carnivore person, and he said, just try it for 3 months. And so I did. And then I was blown away because one day I woke up in the morning and I just felt this euphoria. And it was like, come on, I want to change the world. I'm so happy. I'm so happy to be alive. And like, I've never felt like that before. And I was never depressed. I never had an issue that I needed to solve. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't try things, and you shouldn't, go as far as you can to find out what optimal living is like. And if someone has given me a clue as to what there could be something that I'm missing, I'll try it. What's the harm in trying it? There's literally no cost to trying.
So that's such a great point. I love that you went there with that. We are here in this conference and we're discussing low carb and carnivore, and everybody here is telling me that they feel amazing on low carb and carnivore. And if we go outside, out to the real world, we see the reality. Like, go to the airport as you're flying home, you see what people are living like. What would you want somebody to know about this way of eating? Because you're right, a lot of people are not open to this. They think it's insane, or they're not willing to change their diet. What would you want somebody to know about the way of eating that you found in your new lifestyle?
What I want them to know. I mean, it's hard to describe to somebody how amazing you could feel, because it just sounds too theoretical. It sounds like it's for somebody else. It sounds like, well, they're lucky, great. I think the way to get to people, and the way I would approach explaining it to people, is look at the story of nutrition, because we've never learnt that history before. Until I read Nina's book, and hearing about Nina's book, until I'd even come across any of that, I had no idea that nutrition had evolved the way it had. And, we have a book club that I run as well, a carnivore book club. Cool. And so we all discussed this very point in our book club, which was, we learn history about everything else, every war that's taken place and every other issue that's happened in the world politically. Why are we not learning nutrition history, which is the foundation for humans to thrive and understand all of the different, kind of factors that have, different sides of the argument, not necessarily to get you to a solution that we want, but just, how we evolved, how has nutrition changed, how is nutrition, now coming through? Is that the right way? What are the different sides of the debate? None of that is accessible or even considered as something that people should know about. Yeah. And for me, that's where we need to start with education, because until people recognize there's a problem, they won't realize that they're part of the problem, and they won't realize they need to change. So, for me, that's how I'd try and go to somebody. But I'm always coming at it from very much a kind of marketing background. So I'm always trying to think, how do you get, a classic part of marketing is you have to have a burning platform. You have to create a recognition of the problem. Otherwise you can't go anywhere. You go straight to someone on the street and say, try the carnivore diet. They'll be like, what the hell are you talking about? I'm totally fine. So you need to take, because we're in the bubble of it. So sometimes we get very, blinded by everything else, and we think that we've got a solution. We need to help with that solution, but actually you need to take them on a very different journey to get them to move along the curve we want them to go to. So
It's very insightful. Olivia, I've really appreciated this talk. Thank you so much.
Nice to meet you, Casey.
Nice to meet you.
So my name is Amy Herrera. I live in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and I'm a nutritional detoxification specialist, and colon hydrotherapist and ozone practitioner. So when I was younger, I lived on my family has dairy farms, so we did that whole dairy thing. So I always wanted to be vegetarian at a young age because I saw a lot of like scary kind of things as a kid in that conventional dairy farm.
Interesting.
Yeah, and great things too, but and back then, I'm in my late 40s, so back then it was being vegetarian was like the cool thing to do. I was in California, and that was like the thing. So I just became vegetarian. Like I was like, oh, I don't like meat, I'm just going to be vegetarian. And I was vegetarian for a long time. And then, and I was in fashion. So of course, vegetarianism, thinness, all of that, especially in the 80s and 90s was really like pervasive. Like, so the thinner the better, that whole thing. So my guts were not feeling good, but I didn't realize that back then. I just thought that's the way everyone felt. Right. So, then eventually I got really sick when I was in my mid 31-ish, and I had to leave my job in fashion, and I still didn't realize why I was sick. I mean, the diet bars I was eating, the Diet Coke and coffee for breakfast was probably part of that.
Easy to look back on now, but
like a very low calorie processed standard American diet, like seriously like calorie restricted. And no sleep, things like that. Going to the gym and working out, like in 24-hour fitness, going and working out at like midnight, because I get my workout in, that was the most important thing. So anyway, so then I moved to Mendocino and became a raw foodist and a raw food chef. And I started getting better. I literally started feeling like I was healing. Green juices and just raw vegan, to the max, living in a community of raw vegan people. I saw these women, they looked so vibrant, I thought, and I wanted that, so I did that, and I did start feeling better, and I did that for a while, and I was raw foods for 2 years, and we moved to Santa Fe, New Mexico, and then I became fruitarian, called fruitarian diet, and I worked in Whole Foods, so back then, so I was eating fruit all day long. I was just eating, and I would run 15 miles a day. I would run to a class, take 2 classes, and then run home. I ran after work. I was
oh my God,
it was insane, but I was always bloated.
I'm getting tired. Can I take a nap?
It was insane. It was insane. And my husband is a chef still. So he was and he eats meat. He eats everything. He doesn't care about any, he just eats whatever. And he was just would make me all this beautiful food all the time. He made me amazing food. I would eat meat. I was eating all the time, bloated all the time now. And went to colon hydrotherapy school, because colon hydrotherapy actually really helped me. Probably because I was eating so much fiber. It was I just getting clogs really helped me. So I started doing that for people and just started my business. And then a really, really, really stressful thing happened 4 years ago. Very, very, very stressful. So stressful that I didn't know if I was going to make it through I didn't know what was going to happen with my own health and with my life. It was so stressful. And then the pandemic happened, and then all these things happened. My husband left for 3 years, and he it was just, and he made all my food. He was he literally fed me. It was amazing. We were apart. He was in Mexico for 3 years. And I broke, basically. I was not digesting anything. Food was coming out whole. It was and I was trying to eat. I had switched to a vegan keto diet. So my blood sugar was crazy. So I was trying to like keep that in control because I was always hungry. So I was trying to do like vegan keto, which is like impossible, that.
Very difficult.
was
Maybe
so-
like a little better.
I lost like so much weight. It was like I weigh like 105 now. I weighed like 95 pounds. So
Wow.
I was like, what that?
Yeah.
People were like, sorry, can I cuss?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, people were like, what the fuck is wrong with her? Like, it was like, what, whoa. Some people were like, oh, you look great. I'm like, and actually, anyways, weird fashion eating disorder, crazy mind was like, oh, yeah. And I'm like, literally, my family's like, no, like, it was bad. I lost all my muscle.
Wow.
And I, like, as a vegan, you have to work really, really hard for muscle. So I had, like, it was crazy. So I just decided, this is how I found low carb. This is a long-winded answer to your question. I was listening to a bunch of podcasts. Gabrielle Lyons, podcast is Gabrielle Lyons, and just trying to figure out what I could do. And decided I needed to heal my gut. First of all, my gut was fucked up. It was a mess. Like, it was so bad. Like, I had like parasites, non-intestinal bacterial overgrowth, like major candida. I was living in mold for 14 years. And I found out all these things. And if you know, like I do, about healing from mold and other diseases, you have to have protein. You have to eat meat. You have to. So I just decided one day, I was hiding. I literally was like so embarrassed. I went to the store, like, oh no, I ordered online. What did I order from? I ordered like White Oak Patchers online or something. I just was like hiding. Like, I was like in the vegan community. Like,
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
it was,
That's legit.
so I was like, first thing I did was I tried eggs, and I do have an egg sensitivity. I knew that from when I was a kid, but like I was laying on the floor in my office, like crying. I hurt my stomach so bad. So that wasn't good. So then I tried bison, maybe, because it's local. Like, we have a lot of bison, and I ordered a bunch of meat and all these other things, like, just to try different things. And I can't remember the first thing. It may have been chicken. I don't know. I can't remember anymore. But I will tell you what I do remember is sitting in my house, crying, having like an anxiety attack. I called my neighbors, who are my landlords, and told them I was having a heart attack, and we called EMS because I thought I was having a heart attack, but they came to my house. Okay. EMS comes to my house. I have like a Peloton, all these weights. I have a full gym in our house. And they're like, you are not having a heart attack. They're like, do you have any like mental issues? They're like, because I was having an anxiety attack because I was eating meat for the first time in 28 years.
Wow.
And it was so fucking stressful for me.
Wow.
I was alone. I felt so guilty. But the crazy thing is, after that experience, and the EMS left, they're like, did you change your diet or something? What's going, like they're like, something is not. They literally asked me if I changed my diet, because the reaction I was having, I think, was like maybe in mineral amounts. I don't know what the hell was going on. They asked me that, which I found interesting. Anyway, a couple days later, I kept doing it. I kept eating, this chicken at first, and then it turned around to bison ground. And I would like make my little lunches and hide at work. So no one would see me. And I started feeling better. And I wasn't bloated. And my stomach didn't hurt. And it did it for 8 months. Like, straight. I didn't really tell anybody. And then I started slowly telling people. And I have clients that are like, oh, you're just eating meat now? Like, they're like, so, because people are so, they think that veganism or vegetarianism and meat is so bad for your intestines. I'm like, I'm an expert. I see people's poop all day long.
Yeah.
Do you know how much undigested food, like plant matter, I see in people's poop? like all day long, like a lot. Like goji berry. This is good. Sorry, I'm just saying.
No, this is great.
Freaking goji berries and like sesame seeds and sunflower seeds and pumpkin seeds and like pieces of like kale and like huge chunks of sweet potato. And I'm like,
This is not getting into your body. This is going
Dude.
into your mouth hole,
exactly.
traveling through your
And you
body,
think-
causing issues, and you get rid of it. You didn't take any of it in.
You think you're doing good. And all these people are like, they're bloated and they're fat and I'm like, and they ask me, they literally ask me, because I'm lean. I'm like, there's not very many people that are lean to me here. I'm very lean. And I mean, they ask me, they're like, what do you do? What do you eat? I'm like, meat. I eat meat and fat.
That's amazing.
I literally, like, here's the other thing. I went to this raw, so I went on this cleanse because one of my clients, because I have pretty wealthy clients. So one of my clients was like, she was sick. So she was like, will you come to this, take me, basically be my chaperone to this raw cleanse? It was like something that I would have done a long time ago. Like, I would have probably been the chef at one of these things.
But you were not doing that at the time. This is after,
like, this is like a year ago.
Okay, got it.
So she's like, can you come to this with me? And I do this juice fast. And I did. I went to this thing and I did this juice fast with these people. And they were like you should have seen the propaganda. Like, that was there. Like, I did a 5-day juice fast and it's fine. I probably lost like 5 pounds though, but the propaganda was like, they were talking about like, fat makes you fat and like just all the things about animals, and it was crazy. I was like sitting there listening and I was like combative. I was like challenging everything they were saying. But
contrast that experience with the experience you've had this weekend. What's the difference? Because we could do the same thing. Carbs are bad.
Mm-hmm.
Vegetables can cause harm for people. We can get really locked in. So what is the difference? This could be considered the same thing.
There was just a lot. You're right. But it's not like that because, well, first of all, there's science that's backing this up. A lot of this was just like propaganda when I was at this event. They were also saying that fat makes you fat. It was just like, fat doesn't make you fat. If fat made you fat, I'd be fat.
Yeah.
And a lot of fat. I mean, I like coconut. I actually eat mostly like coconut butter and stuff like that because I just really like it. And that's really good for me and it feels good on me. But I eat a lot of coconut butter. I do eat a lot of, we have a local like pasture raised. It's called forested chicken. I eat a lot of that. And they have turkeys too. So I eat turkey and then I eat bison, lots of bison. That's like what I eat every day.
Amy, this is an amazing story. I'm so glad you took the time to sit down with me today.
Yeah.
So grateful that you found that you could find healing in something that was different than what you were taught and that you had the courage to step out of that. And so glad you're here over this weekend to learn from all these people. And I have to question myself all the time. Like, am I getting too locked in? Am I focusing too much on this one thing? Am I getting too obsessed with this one thing? And it's like, you spend a weekend with like-minded people who really are sharing the science and like they're doing things that people are not doing, that have not been done. And they're blowing minds. And it's really amazing. I think it's so cool, your story. And
I mean, I think that I've saved myself a lot of, well, definitely my bone density. I had the bone density of like a 63-year-old woman when I was like 30, I swear.
Wow.
It was bad. So that's one thing.
Yeah.
I mean, but that still didn't wake me up. I still was in it. Because it was for the animals.
Yeah,
I thought it was for the animals.
Yeah.
That's the thing. That's the biggest thing. But you need animals in this whole thing.
Yeah.
So it's like, I didn't understand that. I was so in that. And I mean, we all have our own stories, but it makes a difference. It really saved me.
Yeah.
So
that's incredible.
Thank you for listening.
Of course. No, we all have our own stories, and I'm
yeah. I'm
great to
so
be sharing
obsessed with listening to, and your voice. I love your voice. It makes me happy.
I hate my voice.
Got to do the radio voice.
However you like.
You've got a good voice.
I disagree.
Hey, I'm Michael Burns from Denver, Colorado, and I'd like to tell everybody about how I found low carb. Heart attack, April 2022, almost died. Sitting there at Ann Schultz out there in Aurora and overlooking my old stomping grounds and trying to figure out where I went wrong. And yeah, it was pretty amazing. About a week after recovery, because they go through the groin. It's not pretty. Came across Dr. Berry, amongst others, about the low carb diet. It was quite amazing. And I immediately went to carnivore. And within 6 months, I had lost 60 pounds.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And went back to cardiologist right on time at 30 days. And they ran me through the ringer. And they did the CT scan, CA scan, something like that. And they cut it short and said, there's nothing wrong with you. You're doing great. She wouldn't even answer my questions because I was ready for the dye and going through all that stuff. And got to finally talk to the cardiologist. And he said, you're doing great, and wasn't even interested in how I did it.
Wow. Did they not seem surprised? Did they see lots of people that are able to?
No, he says it's the most fastest recovery that I've ever had. He's ever had.
And they were not interested in talking about lifestyle?
Not even close. Nope. He just congratulated me on being healthy again. And
you won the lottery. You got way lucky.
Gave me the boot. So, holy cow. So I've been a big advocate of the low carb diet, which brings me here, of course. It's just amazing. The people here are incredible.
First ever conference, low carbohydrate conference you've ever been to?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's a wonder, that I'm even here. But now I'm going to start spreading the word, which probably to you, of course.
Well, that is absolutely amazing. Now, Dr. Ken Berry is here.
Yes. So is Sean Baker. I think they're all doctors. I'm not sure. But
have you been able to talk to him? And
oh, yeah.
What did he say?
He just nodded and smiled because, you only got a minute with him or 2 minutes with him personally, if you keep an eye out for it. And he sees it all the time. And that's what blows my mind. All of his patrons, or whatever you call them these days, have the same stats. Your triglycerides go from 300 to 60. Average of 90 is okay. So here I am dying at 385 or something. Weigh 265. Now I weigh under 200 pounds today.
You look great.
I eat meat, and then a couple of things once in a while, and then I eat meat. Fattier the better. You lose weight faster on fatty meats. I would like to learn how to spread the word, so I came here because all these people here are spreading the word. But they're coming up with the stats that are just blowing my mind on how the establishment is against it, against health. ADA, AMA, all of them. So I got to learn how to speak better and to associate with people on their level and let people know there's another way. There's a lot of blue-collar men, women, truck drivers, overweight, and they still love their Twinkies. And I'd like to show them a way before they become a statistic like me with the MI.
This is so fascinating because most of the people we talk to are the Dr. Ken Berrys and the Dr. Sean Bakers and all of these experts. And it's amazing. I'm now sitting in front of somebody who didn't know anything about low carbohydrate less than a year ago, almost died, completely turned his life around because of this message. And you're right. Like, dude, like in all my years of training and nutrition coaching, giving people the standard advice, I could almost guarantee you that it wouldn't work. And giving people low carbohydrate carnivore, I can almost guarantee you that it absolutely will work. It's astounding.
It is. It really is. So I'm just trying to figure things out here at the was it Low Carb Denver conference,
Denver.
2023. Yeah, I'm overwhelmed, and I'm enjoying every minute of it. It's driving the wife a little crazy, but it's all good. Kids are quite curious because they're avid technology minded, and they're going to help me figure it out.
Wow.
So kudos to Carly and Caitlin.
Kudos to Carly and Caitlin. Now, is that something you've also noticed, like the people around you seeing your transformation and getting curious about what you're doing? Have you been able to influence some of the people closest to you?
Yes and no. Some people, well, everybody noticed the difference in my appearance. I got a sharpened mind now, but after racing motorcycles for so long, I still hurt a lot after a 12-hour day of work.
Wow.
I'm still, in a lot of pain. Inflammation's gone way down. Everything, all the markers are right on the money. Absolutely great. Some people watch this whole thing evolve and are curious about it, and they'd like to look into it more. Some people that I think need it, I push a little bit on the subject and it pushes them away. So I'm at a loss, but the berries in the world say, do it silently and let them come to you.
Yeah.
You mentioned carnivore and they freak out. You mentioned keto and there's better diets, but I'm learning here it's not a diet.
Yeah.
It is a lifestyle.
Yeah.
I've kind of known this, but it's been solidified.
Yeah.
But calling it low carb, all of a sudden, it's more easily available.
Yeah.
But the details, the devil's in the details.
Today was, I've been to several of these today. This morning session was one of the most mind exploding sessions I've ever been to. It was fantastic.
Oh, that's wonderful. And we can watch that on your 473 or whatever number.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
Well, this has been such an amazing and very inspiring conversation. I'm so glad.
Yes.
I'm so glad that you're here, and I'm really glad that you're on this side of the dirt and that you found something. You know what I mean? Like you found the right information and decided to try it. And now you're so excited. You would come to a very technical medical conference about this stuff and have that passion, desire to share the message.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing. Some people want to know about it and most of them don't.
Yeah.
They're just, they're making money selling sugary whatevers.
Yeah.
But if I was to leave with a bottom line, I cured 95% of my diabetes. I do not have a fatty liver. My kidney disease is gone. My neuropathy in my feet, being diabetic for 25 years, is going away. You can recover from diabetes unless you go to the American Diabetes Association website and read and do what they say.
That's right.
I could go on, and I probably will go on. It's amazing.
That's really incredible.
Yeah.
Mike, thank you so much for your time today.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
It is windy. I knew the sound quality wasn't going to be the best anyway for doing something like this.
Yeah.
But it's good enough. And I just think it's really fun to capture everybody's story. So 5 minutes each of like how you found low carb. Like
okay.
Yeah.
So Bunko, where we usually drink and eat not great, really good food for me. But my
women
friend,
are card shark. If you're over 50 and you play any card games, you guys are card sharks.
Yeah, we are. Yeah. And this is with dice actually. So we're dice sharks.
Oh, is it? I didn't know that.
Yeah. And so anyway, my friend Maria had done it 2 years before I had asked her numerous times how she managed to lose the weight, and she kept telling me NSNG, Vinnie Tortorich, no sugar, no grains. And I would look at her and go, yeah, that's great. You look awesome. And then finally I reached a point where I was regaining weight I had lost, and I was going to have to buy a new set of clothes again. And I said, that's not what I'm going to do. So I went on NSNG and I started low carb, high fat, and I stopped eating all the junk, and I lost 40 pounds in spite of traveling 4 different vacations to places like Hawaii and Peru and every other places where they eat a lot of sweet type foods or carbs, and so it's been 4 years in May. So I've successfully lost 40 pounds and kept it off for 3.5 years, and I feel great. So that's
And we're
the
sitting
story.
here in the sunshine,
in the sunshine in Colorado,
recording with meat in my mouth.
meat and mouth, and I was eating chicken wings and avocado.
You are eating chicken wings dipped in
Dipped in
avocado. That looks absolutely delicious. Why? What was your resistance initially to what she was saying about no sugar, no grain? I mean, I would look at that plate if I didn't know any of this, and I would say, like, wow, like, suicide wish, like you're going to die from
I'm gonna
cholesterol.
die, and I crave beef more than most foods these days. So my resistance was that it was going to be hard to give up all those things that I grew up on, like potatoes and, especially potatoes, probably rice, pasta, ice cream, all of those things. And instead I found that, I don't need those things. I eat them once in a while if I really want them.
Do you really miss them?
No. On a day-to-day basis, no, I do not. No. Mm-mm. When I go out and I see something that looks really good, then I may decide to have something. But normally when I go out, I do my best to just stay the same way and eat this way. And I eat a lot of steaks and beef and
So can you
ribs.
talk about that a little bit? Because that's so consistent with people that I work with, is like, so few women have a taste for red meat.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll say, it looks gross. I don't like it. I don't like the fat. There you go. Nice. Down the hatch. And they don't really, they're not getting nearly enough protein from any source. And so they might start by getting a little more chicken, a little bit more fish. Like, but over time, I tell people, like, don't worry about it. Don't put any pressure on it. But you're going to be surprised in 3 months or 6 months or 9 months. You're going to be eating steak.
Yeah, no, I did definitely. And even now my husband will say things like, well, we've had a lot of beef this week. And I'm like, so, okay,
great,
whatever. What does that mean? But I give in, I do compromise, and we'll eat some really good fish, or, but then you have to have sources of fat with it. So, you do tend to eat more fish. I mean, a serving of fish last night was 8 ounces in the restaurant here. And that was about right. But I also had chicken wings with it.
Nice.
So,
wow.
So that was it. But I think it does take time to get past that sort of diet mentality. It came up in the talk. Why don't women eat more protein? And we've all been taught to eat salads.
Yeah.
That's the right way a woman maintains an okay weight and loses weight, whatever. And it, that didn't work for me. And I was the queen of fruit and veggies.
Wow.
Weight Watchers.
Wow. At the dinner they did last night, they brought out a salad plate, and I have not eaten any vegetables in 4 years. I just have not. I don't like them. I don't miss them. So much better on carnivore. But they brought the salad out, and just, I was like, I'll have a taste. Like, maybe it'll be fine. Maybe it'll be fine. And I took one bite and was like, this tastes awful.
So don't eat it. Yeah,
and then I didn't.
Exactly. Well, I like some of the flexibility, though. I mean, Sean Baker saying, hey, if you want to eat some vegetables, eat some vegetables. You know, and I think that will make it, this way of eating, more accessible to more people.
I love that idea. Yeah, I love that idea. It's fun to come to these conferences and debate which subfractions of cholesterol are problematic. But the reality is, even though those are fun to debate, like, if you go to the real world, like, let's not worry about that. Let's not squabble over little things. Like, people are very sick. Let's get them off of carbohydrates and onto something better.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. So, and that has worked for me.
That's great.
So,
well, thank you for sharing your story.
You're welcome.
Who's next, ladies?
Oh, she has a good story too.
Terri, you piggyback off that one anyway.
Okay. So hi, I'm Terri. And
hi, Terri.
4 years ago, I was incredibly sick, type 2 diabetic, out of control on 200 units of insulin a day.
Wow, that's a lot.
Fatty liver disease. I was 130 pounds overweight. I had just finished becoming a 2-time cancer survivor. And so I was being followed by a pulmonologist, because my bone cancer is supposed to show up in my lungs and my kidney cancer is supposed to show up in my bladder. So I had a lot of doctors watching what I was doing. And I went to my pulmonologist at that point, and he said, Terri, I'm sorry, but you have to lose 100 pounds by the next time I see you, or you're going to go on full-time oxygen. And I was very sad. And I went over to a friend's house and said, what am I going to do? I'm going to be an old woman well before my time. And she said, I heard about this person at Bunko who's having some really good success with
That's
NSNG.
amazing.
And
Did you think it was bananas?
Oh yeah, NSNG, no sugar, no grains. And I'm thinking all the food I eat is sugar or grains. There is nothing. I didn't really care for beef at that point. I'd eat shrimp or something, but I really wasn't a big meat eater. And of course, I had learned over time that I was supposed to eat all these vegetables because that was the way I was going to stay skinny. Apparently, it hadn't worked because I was really sick. And but so I jumped in full swing on that, and I haven't looked back. It's going on 4 years. And so the cool thing is, 6 months later, I go back to my pulmonologist because he's going to look at my lungs again. And they weigh you before you go in. And all of a sudden, he's standing at the door. He said, I had to see this for real because I didn't think it was the same person. At that point, I had lost, I think, about 60 pounds. But I'll throw in, I was off all insulin in 6 weeks. So type 2 diabetes can be put into remission. This is, think of all the pharmaceutical companies that would go out of business if they didn't have to make insulin. Just saying. So, and the end of that story is I've now been let go by my pulmonologist because he said, all those things I was watching are all gone. So you don't need me anymore. Call me if anything changes. I went on to lose about 100 pounds total. Still maybe could do some tweaking, but I'm mostly carnivore now. I did start out eating no sugar, no grains, which also is no sweeteners. I do not do sweeteners. I do not eat fruit. It's really, meat, fish, eggs, and maybe a few vegetables. I do like avocados. But I really don't miss anything, and I am so much more healthy. Just imagine, I was on all that insulin, and I don't have to take insulin. I'm actually off all my meds now. I was on heart meds. Because there were other problems too. It's all gone. It's totally all gone. I feel great. I eat NSNG, but I also call it, with Dr. Ken Berry, the proper human diet. Mostly carnivore, other than throw in a few little bits here and there. It's saved my life. So then another time I went to that pulmonologist before he released me. And because I was healthy at that point, he took the entire appointment to say, tell me what you've done. I need to know.
That was going to be one of my questions. He did ask.
This is amazing, doctor. Yeah. And so he asked me, what have you done? And I started telling him, and he cut me off and said, that everything you're saying is totally against what I've learned in medical school. And I said, I know that. And how many of those people? Oh, because one thing he said was, he said, do you know how many people I've told lose 100 pounds or you go on oxygen? It's like, I don't know. He goes, I've been saying that for decades. He said, do you know how many people did it? I don't know. And he says, 1. I'm like, oh, good for them. He goes, no, Terri, it's you. You're the only one who has ever done it in decades. So that's when he started asking me, what are you doing? And we took the whole appointment for me telling him, and I hope that helped other people, because the key is we got to get this out there. These diseases are not lifelong sentences to misery. They can be, you can go into remission. There's so much more life out there if you're eating properly. And I can tell you, this is maybe not to sell it, but I have done 0 exercise because I did have bone cancer. My leg's been rebuilt. It took me years to really learn how to walk again without pain and all this kind of stuff. So I did this without exercise. And I'm not unique. Everybody can do this. This is not hard. And I wasn't a meat eater, but now, right in front of me, I've got no sugar pulled pork. I've got bacon. I just finished an egg cup that had bits of prime rib in it.
You got your friends reaching over, stealing all of it. Like, look, bacon, that's so good.
It's a shared amount.
So I don't believe in sharing bacon that often, but we made enough. But I had egg bites that had prime rib or not prime rib. It was ribeye in them. I mean, there's a lot of good food to eat, and it's food that's good for me. It's not food that is terrible, and it's not hard to do. And being a a Weight Watchers person for decades. That never worked.
How old are you?
I am 65.
You are
And-
kicking ass.
Thank you.
Taking names.
It's just the best ever. And I could have been dead by now.
Mm-hmm.
I truly could have. My diabetes was so out of control. They were trying to figure out what else could they give me. I was already on tons of insulin and everything else. Nothing was fixing it. Well, I was also eating the standard American diet. I did. Fruit's healthy, right? Eating a bunch of fruit. So now I'm really on a mission because I have a son with severe disabilities and mental illness. And I know that the home he lives in feeds him the standard American diet. He's eating carbs and sugar. That's really what he's eating. And I'm on a mission to attack the mental health agencies. And that's why I wanted to hear Chris Palmer so much.
God bless Dr. Chris Palmer.
Amazing. Because
that book.
He brought, I inhaled the book, listened to his talk. He brought me to tears because it means there's hope out there.
Yeah.
There's hope. This is all mental illness is all the mitochondria. It's a metabolic disorder. And there are ways to make it better. There really are. I truly believe that. And we just need to get all of the agencies and everything else that don't believe this is true. We need to get them on board. And I heard there was going to be a bill up at the legislature. We haven't found it yet, but I've heard rumor that there's going to be one about bringing in low carb into some of the mental health institutions here in Colorado. Man, if I can find that, I'm up there testifying on the Hill. I swear I'll do it because this message needs to get out. So thanks for doing your podcast.
Thank you for sharing that. That is so
You're
powerful.
getting the message out, and in any way it can get out, everybody needs to hear this.
I agree. I think we all have a voice and we all have a part of sharing, big or small, whatever. It doesn't matter. Terri, that's amazing.
Thank you.
One more to go. Let's hear about your story.
Okay, hi. I'm Robyn.
Hi, Robyn. Cool sunglasses, by the way.
Oh, thanks. They're my actual glasses. They just tint up. So, yeah, but I like purple. So, I have been low carb NSNG for almost 6 years now, and I heard about Vinnie Tortorich through what we call the Corolla effect. My husband listened to Corolla and told me about it, and then through a series of events, that was the option that I chose. The reason why was I was just turning 40. I had gone to a doctor's appointment and standard blood test, and my 40-year-old rite of passage was being told I was going to have to be put on statin. And so thankfully I knew enough to say, you know what, there's another way to handle this. I asked my doctor if he would be okay with me trying a dietary intervention instead. And, will I die between now and 6 months from now? And he said, no, let's do it. So I did. And I can't remember exactly how much weight I had lost because it was never about weight for me. But between those 6 months, I'd lost probably 20, 30 pounds. And
this is NSNG. You went no sugar, no grain.
No sugar, no grain. NSNG, started listening to Vinnie religiously, at that time I was still eating vegetables and it was just a combination of vegetables and meat cooked in healthy fats, as in usually bacon fat or maybe olive oil. So
healthy
something like
fat
that.
Is
Healthy
bacon fat?
Yeah,
What?
absolutely. So within that 6 months, I went back to the doctor and we did the blood tests again, and he agreed that what I was doing was great and we didn't go on the statin, and he said, just keep doing what you're doing.
Was he curious to learn about what you were doing to share with other patients?
Absolutely not. But he was at least supportive of me. So
that's something.
He was just, it wasn't, as most standard doctors these days, they don't have the time to have that conversation. So he didn't have the time to have that conversation. He just knew that whatever I had chosen to do was working. And we really did not talk about that diet at all. And also, to use the word diet, I never considered it what people usually associate with the term diet, as in I'm going on a diet. I was making a dietary change. I was changing my life based on the food that I was consuming. So in the course of that time, my husband lost his job. They did some downsizing. He couldn't find work. We were living in South Carolina at the time. He couldn't find work, and we made the decision that we should moved to Texas. So this is when I started realizing, and where I didn't say, I had suffered for well over a decade with depression and bipolar disorder. And I have 2 children. They were young at the time, and I feel like I just missed their life. But when we made this move, I realized that I was able to handle, first of all, the fact that my husband was gone 3 months before the rest of us. So I was handling packing up a house, doing all the last things that the kids could do while we were still in the home that they grew up in for 10 years. And I just started realizing I was not panicked. I was not anxious. I was just kind of going with the flow. And I was like, maybe I don't need these meds anymore. I was on a cocktail of meds. I can't even tell you. Every time I saw a different psychiatrist, I was given a different pill. Nothing was working. I just was always going from pill to pill to pill, to the point where I was basically just a lump in the corner of the room, just watching life go by. I had to set an alarm to wake up, to take the kids to school, to go home, to go right back to sleep, to set an alarm to wake up, to go pick up the kids from school, to get them fed, bathed in bed so that I could go back to sleep. And that was my life for a decade or more. So realizing that, I was starting to kind of see color again. The world wasn't gray. So I did work with the doctor that I had chosen to see in Texas, and I told them what I was doing. No, they didn't care about the diet. They just were interested in my thoughts that I could possibly titrate down and get off. So within a year and a half of being an SNG, I had started that process of titrating off of all of my medications. And by 2 years in, I was completely off all medications, and I have not gone on an antidepressant or an antipsychotic since. And this is my life. This is how I eat. I am very well aware of what will trigger me. I actually was part of an experiment because it turns out that I am LMHR, lean mass hyperresponder, and we were trying to control to see, and I went into this willingly, knowing it was an experiment, if adding a little bit of carbohydrate back into my diet would actually reduce the numbers of the extremely high LDL that I had. And it in fact does work. However, it put me back into my depressed state. I didn't want to get out of bed. My first thought on waking up was, when can I go back to sleep? I saw these things happening. So I know that for me, that even a minimal amount of carbohydrate is going to trigger the things that are going on in my brain. So I am, in fact, mostly carnivore. Here at the conference, I've had to make some slight adjustments because I haven't had the piles and piles of meat that I would normally eat at home. So I'll eat avocado. I actually made a real concession. I had to eat some nuts this week, some macadamia nuts this week. But other than that, I'm almost completely carnivore, and that's incredible. There's no other way for me.
That's absolutely incredible. So we've interviewed Dave Feldman and Dr. Sotomoto, who is conducting some of the research on lean mass hyperresponders. We think if you're at a certain body mass, essentially what can happen with the LDL cholesterol, what doctors call bad cholesterol, is not that it goes high, but it goes like sky high, like scary.
Mine was greater than 3,500.
3,500.
Yes,
Wow.
but my triglycerides are like
40?
60. Yeah, even if it was 60, yeah, it was like 40. I can't even remember. I just know that greater than, like, it was amazing, like off the charts high. So we thought we would try this, but I have a CAC of 0. I've taken the familial hypercholesterolemia genetic test, and it's I don't have that. So that's where I am. So I know that I live in a world of no man's land because we don't have the studies yet, but my doctor and I both agree that the power of 0, like we were talking about yesterday, is that we're going to keep an eye on things, but it's not the forefront of our
How
issue.
did you not run up on stage and start making out with Dave Feldman?
Well, actually, I did apply to be part of the study, and I did not qualify. However, I'm so excited with his news that this might open up again, and I'm hopeful that I may get a call back.
You revealed preliminary information.
Just very exciting
that is
information.
mind blowing.
So I did go up and I spoke to him for quite some time. In fact, we walked and talked for quite some time. And I'm just so excited about what he has coming out and what's going to be, what we might know. We know what we know now because of the bomb he dropped on us, and then what's going to come out a year from now and possibly 2 years from now, that I might not live in no man's land anymore. I might have a contingent of people who are just like me that maybe don't have to worry as much. And so I'm very hopeful for that.
That's amazing. You are 3 humans that you did not know existed in the world 5 minutes before this conversation. We're out in the sun enjoying our lunches, which I'm totally stuffed.
Some of us from Texas might be shivering a little, but it's okay. It's sunshine, and I'll take it.
Go back where I am.
Well, I'm glad you joined us for lunch.
Absolutely.
We got to capture this conversation. It's been really incredible to listen to people and the way that they've heard this. What does it mean to all of you to be at a conference like this, to be in a room with 1,000 like-minded people and just not only hear the experts and the latest research, but also just be around the energy of just people that are happy and thriving and doing well? What does that mean to each of you?
Oh, for me, I can tell you, it's so energizing. And also, I have to admit, this is my first low carb conference, and I was a little bit of a groupie.
Oh yeah, no, little is not the right term. That would be
she just runs off and goes.
There were people
I need to meet them.
I wanted to meet in person, and a lot of them. And what's really cool is they were so gracious to talk to me. I'm like, who am I to you, this big visionary? And invariably, everyone gave me the time of day.
Everyone, not one, said, I don't have time. I've got to talk here in 30 minutes, and we're going to go over something super technical.
And very different questions for each one. And every single one was happy to stop from where they were running off to and really pay attention to my questions and talk to me. And then, take a picture with me because I'm a groupie. But it's just so cool to get the answer from the people who know, not 5 steps down the line. These are the people on the forefront, the cutting edge, and they know this stuff. And I got to talk to them. Amazing. How cool is that?
It's so amazing. Trust me, coming from somebody, I brought all their bobblehead dolls and the posters. I brought the playing cards. I asked for autographs. Trust me.
Well,
total fanboy.
You can't see, but under her sweater,
wear my perfect
she's got a proper
great.
shirt from Dr. Ken Berry.
That's so.
But I did have to write. I had to represent Kenny since he can't be here, so I did have to write NSNG.
That's
on my
great.
name
What
tag.
was your experience in the conference?
I have been. I just feel like I'm trying to respect people's privacy at the same. So I know that it's me holding myself back from going to just running up to people, and I want to, but I haven't. But it's been great. What I'm really taking away, even though we've been just absolutely bombarded with scientific and cited information, but really what I'm taking away is how important it is to share the story. And it's more that we can get out there and share our own personal story or connect with something that we're very passionate about, and trying to make those changes. The more those of us who are doing this can be taken seriously and kind of overpower the current narrative, whatever that can cover a lot of bases. But so I am definitely taking that away from this experience.
I'm just really glad to hear they've been more doing a deep dive, I think, than I have. But to meet these people, see how normal and everyday they were, and to hear that, like Ken Berry was an overweight, morbid, obese doctor, and look at him now, and that's amazing.
Oh, look at Nina Teicholz.
My goddess, Nina Teicholz. She was the first book I read.
I choked up when I interviewed her in the introduction. I couldn't get through the introduction without crying.
She was amazing.
Got to
that
meet her for
book
the
was
first time.
amazing. It taught me that it was real. We had been scammed for years. We had been told wrong information, and every one of us who have followed it have ended up in bad places. Not everyone, but many of us.
Well, ladies, we are lifetime friends now, and I so appreciate you sharing it.
I want to say one more thing that's kind of fun. I went out into the hallway, and so I'm from Texas, and I went out into the hallway here in Denver, Colorado, and my doctor that I see was here.
Wow.
So, and he's
Very
based
cool.
out of Oklahoma.
Wow.
Dr. Greg Dennis, he also has
Oh,
Fit
I've
RX
interviewed.
podcast.
Yeah, I've interviewed him. He's great. I didn't know he was here until he just asked a question.
Yeah, he just asked a question. So, I mean, how amazing is that to know that the doctor that you see is like-minded, and not only that, wanting to continue his education and deep dive just as much as I do. So it's pretty amazing to just like walk out and see him do that.
Thank you for sharing that. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Ladies, thank you so much for
Thank
sharing.
you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Glad you're here.
So thank you so very much for listening to that special episode from the attendees of the Low Carb Denver 2023 conference. I hope you can understand why I got a little bit choked up in the introduction, that those stories are very, very special. And I just think of all of those people as individuals and the lives that they live and how low carb has changed their worlds. It's just really powerful and special. And again, I hope you get inspired by that. Please, if you don't mind, if you haven't already, leave us a rating on Apple podcast. It's a really great way for other people to find this show, and we really appreciate all of the reviews that you leave us. It's really wonderful to see this show grow over time. Definitely check out episode 413 with Jeffrey Gerber as we talk about the conference as part of his story and how he puts it on and all the things that go in with that. And if you're ever considering going to a low carbohydrate conference, I've said this many times, you will not miss the money. You will not miss the time that it took to travel. You will not miss a weekend of your life. You're going to be in a room with experts and researchers and doctors and also everyday people like you heard in this episode, and with this common goal, this common energy of changing the world, changing life through health, through doing something that's very unconventional that people are not talking about enough. And so if you're ever on the fence about it, I promise you that you will love it, you will not miss the money, and you will make memories that will last a lifetime. So with that, we will close this episode, and thank you so very much, as always, to listening to Boundless Body Radio. So thank you again so very much for listening to this episode of the relaunch of the amazing stories from the attendees of Low Carb Denver 2023. Whenever you're listening to this, whether it is on December 25th or whenever, just want to say I hope you have an amazing holiday season. Thank you so very much for listening to our show. We're really grateful for you, and I wish you a very blessed 2024. Thanks again for listening to Boundless Body Radio.